Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. I'm your host, John Maddox, and tonight we're having another stream you just won't want to miss. If you got what it takes, click that link, or prepare yourself, for this arena is not for the weak. Now, let the mental combat begin, but always make sure your arguments are LPP.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a late night here on the LPP. Yes, it has been 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, since I started this channel on a whim to take on the one and only James Downard over on MDD. And fast forward to today, here we are. I've done a whole bunch of debates, had a bunch of videos, lots of after shows, crazy streams, interesting late night debacles, diatribes, and a plethora of interesting conversations. And here we go. Actually, yesterday was so February 4th was the official anniversary. However, the 5th was the day of my, I think it was the 5th was the day of my debate. So kind of getting him all the timing going. So if anyone wants to join in, have some conversation, have some throwbacks, who knows where it may go. I'm pretty tired, so if I won't keep this one too long tonight, but you never know. Sometimes these things keep going. So if you want to get in, have some conversation, link is in the side chat. I'm going to post it again and pin it so I don't forget. And there we go. Should be coming up any second now. Let me pin that. And yes, time flies, ladies and gentlemen. Super Redeemed Energy was just saying, Honesty Angel, it's gone by fast. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I mean, crazily enough, I can't believe I started memberships 5 months ago. But Jerome, he is a 5-month subber, and appreciate you very much for that. Every support everybody gives. Redefined Lemmy's in the house. Honesty Angel and Cheryl have been. I've seen y'all. We've had great conversations over the last 2 years. Appreciate y'all very, very much. And let's see what else we got inside chat. Ogre is here. We got CJ Cox. We got Mania. I mean, come on, Gur, get on in here. Oh, Sunflower's up here. What's going on, Sunflower? How are you doing? And believe T-Rock is backstage. Let me bring him in. What's going on, T-Rock? How are you doing tonight? How's your weekend going?
Hey, what's happening? Just a relaxing day today. Just kind of hanging out and kind of batting back and forth with evolutionists on YouTube.
Well, you know, there's never an ending of Evo atheists, as I call them, on YouTube that love to get in, regurgitate the same talking points over and over again, never admit they don't have the ability to see the big picture, and usually suffer from the atheist fantasyland projection complex. So
yeah, I like analyzing their arguments to see if they actually have any meat to them. And so, an interesting one that I just was kind of in the middle of a little while ago. This person was telling me that that young Earth creationists basically deny evidence, and I said no. There is. I said I challenge you to show me one piece of physical evidence that YEC rejects. And what did they proceed to show me? They proceeded to show me methodology, not evidence.
Yeah, it's interesting how that tends to be a trend. And what always kind of fascinates me about it is, you know, in all my debates and, you know, ongoing conversations, I have never actually made the formal argument, my formal arguments against evolution through the YEC prism. And it really kind of cracks me up how people seem to not grasp that and recognize the point that's being made. Like, I'm literally doing an internal critique of your worldview. I will grant you your timeline, and it still does not become plausible when you actually go down the rabbit hole and analyze all this stuff.
Isn't that interesting that when you do that, you do what you call an internal critique, which I fully agree with. That's the way it has to be done. It has to be internal. But every time an evolutionist or a deep time advocate tries to critique the young Earth model, what they do is they take part of their system and try and mix it with the YEC model, and then go, "See, I got you." But that's not an internal critique at all.
Well, it's the same thing with the atheism versus theism, like top level conversation, right? Like they want to jump in the middle of it while you're discussing whether or not, you know, it's more, you know, sound of a conclusion that a God exists, the absolute exists, and they're like, well, and they want to immediately jump to, well, I don't, you know, there's a contradiction in your Bible, and it's like, well, okay, like we're not addressing that yet, buddy. Let's go back, rewind a little bit. Let's go back to whether or not concluding that a God exists or needs to exist that's the foundation. And you're wanting to like jump all the way to like, I am debunking Christianity. It's like, well, why would I even want to have this conversation with you? It's a waste of our time. If you're not even going to concede that any God exists, period, then why would it be remotely rational to conclude that you're going to somehow concede that Jesus Christ existed or is God? Especially with all of the atheists that we're now dealing with on the lactheists and the mythicists. And it's like, well, I don't even know if Jesus actually existed. Or maybe he's like a combination of Dionysus and Prometheus from Greek mythology. And it's like, okay, yes. So I'm the one that's irrational. I'm the one that's not actually looking at the evidence. I'm the one who is blinded by my cognitive dissonance based on how I was raised, you know, and all the usual talking points. Like, no. Okay. That's me, right? Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you're the one that's like, actually off in left field, not me.
Yeah, you got to ask those people, do they actually believe the historians, or I mean, by historians, I mean, you know, the in the secular sense, but do they actually believe the historians or the archaeologists? Because none of the mainstream historians or archaeologists, either one, deny that Jesus actually existed.
Yeah, but it's, and, we go down all of these different pathways, right? Whether it be the history, whether it be science, whether it be, general philosophy, just basic logic and rational thought and common sense. It seems I find it very fascinating. One of the things that's been most striking to me over the past 2 years is how so much basic common sense that if you apply the same tactics or positions in any other context, you would be considered an absolute moron and laughed out of the room in any other scenario, right?
Yep.
But then somehow in the online Evo atheist world, fantasy land, the direct opposite is true. Like, deny reality, deny logic, deny rational thinking, implausibility or improbability no longer needs to be counted. No, there's a chance. It's like I mean, okay, cool. So yes, I could come up with a hypothetical in any. You're right. If you're smart, you could theoretically come up with a hypothetical in which X could take place. I agree. That doesn't mean it's plausible. Hence why the name of this channel is Logical, Plausible, Probable. That means they must be all, in order for your end conclusion about your worldview to be rational, it needs to be logical, plausible, and probable. And to me, they are interdependent. All those things are interdependent. And yes, I can come up with a logical argument for something. That doesn't mean it's probable, nor is it plausible. And something could be, we come up with a probability for it, but that doesn't mean that improbability there's a 1 in blah, blah, blah chance. It doesn't mean it's plausible, nor that if you're using that as in defense of one of your premises, that it's logical. And I really don't understand why people have such a hard time grasping that concept. To me, it seems to make sense and not be that complicated to, understand. But I don't know what your thoughts on that.
So yeah, let me ask you this: what are do you have a list of favorite arguments or responses that evolutionists make?
Yes. I mean, my favorite of all time is the genetic code is not a code. I mean, that's hands down my favorite one.
Yeah, that's why they call them codons, right? Because it's not a code.
Yeah. Oh, George, thanks so much for the super chase. Says, hey, John, get yourself a veggie burger or a salad roll. Yes, George, I am on a diet. You're right. Although veggie burgers, man, I just can't do it. There's some kind of I don't know. Ugh, I can't do veggie burgers. But I mean, the whole it's not a code thing. It's just getting ridiculous. I don't know how. I mean, when you have when you have staunch, hardcore, literally one of the four horsemen, i.e., Dawkins, literally doing videos on how atheists on YouTube need to stop claiming it's not a code. Like, if it's gotten to that point, what does that tell you? It tells me that there's a whole plethora of people, i.e. Matt Dillahunty and all of his ilk, that are literally refusing to grasp and accept reality. I mean, again, and I've made this point over and over and over again to people I've debated. I don't care if we agree on the root necessity, on the ontology of it, or if there's even teleology. We don't have to get into that, but you have to at least, how can we even address those kinds of questions if you won't even admit that it's something that has to be addressed?
Yeah, I get kind of tired of listening to people try and micromanage definitions of words, and in that idea of the genome is not a code is what is information. So they literally sit there and try and micromanage every detail of the definition of information to try and basically get past the obvious.
Well, and what's funny about that to me is those definitions they use do nothing but indicate the fact that they have zero knowledge regarding information theory, or are stone cold liars. Like, there's no in between. Either you're a freaking moron who knows nothing about the topic, or you're a liar. I mean, I don't even come to any other conclusion. Like, it's well defined. It's been defined for
Well, yeah, and then
70 years at this point, right?
there's the practical application of it too, because if you can look at a section of code and know exactly what that section of code is going to do, you basically just said, hey, it is information. It does have a predefined outcome.
Well, and then, I mean, you can't know what the code, what it says, unless you have been able to define what the syntax of the code is,
Yeah,
and what the
exactly.
semantic values have been code mapped into the alphabets. Like that's it.
Yeah,
Like
right.
there's no way around this. Like this is such basic, like literally chemistry, literally communication theory 101.
Information theory.
Well, information and communication theory. Going a step further, right? Because I mean, it's like, and by the way, for any haters that may be listening, I actually have in my public folder available to everybody. I literally have communication and information theory textbooks in PDF format sitting in the folder that you're welcome to read and then get back to me on whether or not I actually understand what the hell I'm talking about. Real quick, we have a request for the one and only George Bond. Here we go. Let's get some Diet Coke.
But it is not a code. It's a chemical. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. It's an acid. I don't understand why you think it's a code. DNA is no more of a code than Diet Coke and regular Coke.
Can I translate that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
It's ink on paper. I don't see how in the world you can think that's a message from one person to another. It's literally just ink on paper.
I know it. It's, I don't know how many times we have to try and explain the basics of how communication actually works. It's like, it really amazes me. Bubblegum, this is from my debate with Get Sick. But my boyfriend said no. I still haven't gotten over that. My fiance is a coder, and he said it's not a code. I mean, it's like,
You know what I like? You know what I'm kind of started liking to ask people about things like that, about claims like that. Does your boyfriend have a published paper in a peer-reviewed journal saying that?
I mean, yeah, it's funny that one of the very common things I've heard ad nauseum is, well, why don't you go publish a paper on blah blah blah? And it's like, I'm literally quoting from papers that are already published on the topic. Why do I need to go publish a paper on a subject that has already been researched and well defined and well accepted inside of academia for decades? Like, I don't need to go publish a paper. You need to read one. Like, it's not my responsibility after I show you over and over again why my position is correct. Again, issue caveat at large. I'm not saying that because this exists, that you have to admit that or conclude that a designer exists or preceding agent. But that has nothing to do with whether or not it exists. I mean, get the heck out of here. It's really fast. It's seriously fascinating. What's up, Super Redeemed Energy? How are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Man, good evening. I just heard there was going to be pudding for everybody.
Okay, sorry, say that again about pudding.
I just heard there was going to be pudding for everybody.
Well, the other day, somehow, for some reason, Pudding Brain and the gang decided to do a stream where the thumbnail was my face. And then I don't think they actually discussed anything. I kind of perused through it very quickly, and I don't think I was actually talked about. They were like reviewing one of my streams after I'd gone to bed. But my face was the thumbnail. Whatever. But hey, it is what it is.
And my man, I work on the road a lot, and I just want to tell you congratulations for you got 2,000 individuals out here. You compelled to click that subscribe button, man. I just want to thank you for all the amazing content, and especially the tour series. I really enjoyed that, man. You just keep me company out on this road whenever I'm working, and I just want to congratulate you, man, for all the success so far, man. I just want you to keep it up with another 2 years and encourage that.
Well, I appreciate that very much, bro. It's this stuff is fun. I'll tell you what, the privilege I had to talk to Dr. Tour was pretty amazing. Like that was a very surreal couple of days with getting to have a conversation with somebody of his credibility and background and knowledge and insight and all these kind of things. You know, that, you know, 'cause I'd known who he was for quite a while, and getting to talk to him was kind of amazing. But the fact that the atheists continue to spew the "he's not an expert in" talking point, to your earlier question, T-Rock, maybe one of my favorites. I'm just like, I just don't even know what to say at this point. It's like, so let me get this straight. You don't even know what half of this stuff even means, but then you're going to tell this guy that he doesn't know what a paper he reviews is actually saying.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody pulled it on me here the other day. They said, well, you don't have a degree in any relevant field. And I was like, so you're not qualified to refute evolution. And I was like, you don't have a degree in any relevant field either, so you must not be qualified to defend it.
Well, and in line with that, what always gets me about these interactions, it's like, you know, congratulations on having been brainwashed to the point where you think that the only way you could possibly have understanding of a topic is if you have a specific piece of paper that says so. I mean, prior to the formation, like the modern education system, the vast majority of people didn't have freaking PhDs.
Yeah, no, I like that point that you made last night about, you know, where did Einstein, I mean, the point, regardless of what his personal history and education was, the point is still the same. Where does a PhD even come from? Where did the first PhD guy come from? Who accredited him?
Right. And I need to Google this because I know there's a couple of very famous people who discovered some pretty significant things in relation to like quantum mechanics, for example, that I know for a fact didn't have PhDs. And
oh yeah.
Anyway, long story short, that's like, what's your point? Appreciate the super chat. Brandon says conditionalist OEs love atheist YAC haters more than actual brothers. Yeah, that may be true. And Redefined Living's in the house. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, I came to a party. I heard that there's a party at LPP. It was a BYOB party, so I brought my own bananas, and I'm feeling good. I'm in my prime, mate, so I'm ready to go. No monkeying around.
Sam, you were having way too much fun with that mask. So,
oh no, this is me. I've evolved, or evolving.
Hey, have you had your
it's a fact.
DNA sequence lately?
Definitely, that's what it was. I just looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? Evolution is true. Clear resemblance. So I'm just getting in touch with my evolved self.
Well, you know, so one of the jokes or things I've talked about for a while, which has been, and I may have to do this at some point, and Sam, you may need to actually do this because you got some skills there. I've seriously thought about doing a stand-up comedy routine, just repeating atheist talking points.
Oh gosh, we could do that all day.
Because I really think you could have like a guaranteed set with just like, you know, watch one episode from a Atheist Community of Austin show, and it's almost guaranteed you'd have a set. Like you could get them with 4 or 5 minutes of comedy, like immediately. And
yeah, we know God didn't do it, no matter what, and we know this because of reality. There's a whole bunch of them.
I mean, there's no difference between two rocks banging together in computer code. I mean, that was actually said.
I know one of my favorites is
in anything.
One of my absolute all-time favorites is science is self-correcting.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, I'm like, thank you. You just told me that yesterday's idea about evolution is completely wrong. Tomorrow, we're going to prove that by finding a new idea about it.
Well,
I was... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I was gonna say, someone asked me about the red panda the other day, and they were trying to throw me off because I have the article around here somewhere. But basically, the red panda, they classified it, I think, as a raccoon because it looks similar to a raccoon. The structure, I guess, and then they did a DNA test and they thought it was like a bear, but then they did a full genome test on the thing, and now I guess it's like in a class of its own. So it just goes to show, they're just making stuff up as they go. There's no such thing as when they say scientific truth, that word truth that they smuggle in there is a falsity, right? Because they can come to conclusions on something, but if they use that word truth, then they're defining it arbitrarily.
Well, that would also require accepting that there is such a thing as absolute truth, not subjective. I mean, you know what? Okay, back to your earlier question, T-Rock, in line with what Sam just brought up there. One of my other favorites is the whole question about whether or not X exists until we know that it exists. And it's just like, so did what causes the law of gravity to be able to be written down exist before we knew it? Like, really? Like, that's what's being argued here. If we're talking about, well, it didn't exist before we were aware of it. Like, okay, cool. Well, then you guys love to deny the concept of the measurement problem and the observer problem, but then you want to claim that XYZ principle has no i.e. morals and such have no relevance until we define them. Like, what? Have you thought this through? Have you thought this one through?
Yeah, the laws of physics, all the laws of nature, including physics, those are things that we discovered. Those are things that existed. But the question is, because those things are not made of matter, what makes them actual? If there's nothing imposing them on creation, then what makes them actual? See, and did they exist before the Big Bang? Because according to the Big Bang, if you're gonna use those laws of physics to extrapolate the Big Bang back to that singularity, then that means that those laws would have had to exist in the beginning, or else you wouldn't be able to extrapolate them back that far, right? So did the Big Bang create these laws? And these laws, since they reject God imposing them, are they just magical? What are they exactly?
Yeah, I would like to ask an evolutionist that's actually thoughtful and knowledgeable in physics, exactly when did the current laws of physics come into existence? Was it immediately after that imaginary inflation period?
Right. Yeah, that's the point. I mean, they couldn't have been, because let's say that, the laws of physics were created, like a minute after the Big Bang, then we would only be able to extrapolate that back just before the singularity. But they extrapolate these things all the way back to that singularity. So they're, presupposing that these laws of physics are actual, which how do they account for them? And they're presupposing that these laws existed all the way back at that beginning. So what exactly are they?
Well, they're basically something that evolutionary scientists are allowed to manipulate at their own free will, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, they reject that God imposes these things onto creation because they reject God. Okay, fine, no problem. How do you account for them then?
Yeah, they basically, if they think they have a mathematical equation that might approach some kind of explanation, they can just throw a mathematical equation at it until somebody else comes up with a variation on that mathematical equation, and then the old one's not right anymore.
All right, real quick before I forget about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming up on the 23rd of February, I will be getting the opportunity to interview the one and only Perry Marshall. And for those, you guys have seen videos of him that I've played many, many, many times in debates and conversations with atheists where they like go into Fantasyland. And I had the opportunity to get connected with him by Dr. Gart. And so he's going to come on and we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to it. He's going to be discussing a variety of things, along with a paper he had published recently, the $10 million prize, if you figure out how to create a genetic code without any intelligent agency being necessary, and a plethora of other things. But one of the things we'll also discuss is what the heck is a code. Should be fun. And hopefully we will trigger the heck out of some atheists, because there's no way they're going to be able to handle it. And I mean, anybody who says things like this, let's see if we can find that real quick. Where's that video? Oh yeah, here we go. Anybody says something like this just must be off the rocker.
So DNA it's an identical process to computer codes. And it's very interesting that, you know, computer ideas about computers developed early in the 20th century, and, you know, Claude Shannon comes along in 1948, and DNA is discovered in 1953, and when we start unraveling DNA, we find out that this incredibly sophisticated communication system has been around for 3 billion years.
And we just discovered the communication theory that explains it.
That's right. Okay, and so there needs to be no question that communication theory applies to biology. Okay, all of these concepts can be applied to DNA.
Is that debated anywhere?
Only among people who are ignorant, frankly.
Okay.
Okay. People in the know do not debate
But not in
this
this
fact.
credible scientific community. This is well understood.
There is no credible scientific argument to try to say that applying communication theory to biology is somehow inappropriate.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of scientific papers that go very deep into the subject, and so no, there's
You're
But it is not a code. It's a chemical. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. It's an acid. I don't understand why you think it's a code. DNA is no more of a code than Diet Coke and regular Coke.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be an awesome interview.
That is awesome. It does bring up another interesting idea. Somebody needs to host a debate on is evolution actually the unifying theory in all of biology?
That's a very good question. And I would say, given the fact that there's so much splintering inside of the evolutionary biology, cohorts, I would say maybe not. It's kind of interesting how they even talk about how, well, we need to present a more unified front to the masses, but it will just keep all of our differences of opinion inside, inside the club, so to speak. Anyway, real quick, before I forget about this, I want to give a major shout out to the one and only Jungle Jargon, because I'm currently using the computer that he gave to me on his way out to Missouri after my computer had blown up, and he was driving through after he retired and swung by and literally gave me 2 computers to choose from. And then when I tried to pay him for it, said nope, and he donated the computer to me. So I want to thank you, Jungle, very much for that. It's great to meet him in person, and still to this day, being able to use this great computer he gave me. So thank you so much for that, Jungle. Appreciate that very much. And we got Jamie Russell in the house. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Jamie.
Jamie, you there? You alive?
Muted.
He just came in to give us a little give us a tease. Okay, Germania, listen, buddy. I know you're probably drunk, but get your butt in here. Come on into the stream. It's okay. You know I always welcome you in. We won't take advantage of you. I'm always nice. Super nice guy. Come on in, Germania.
I read this article today, and I thought I saved it, and now I just can't find it. And it's talking about all how the paradigm has shifted so much regarding the Neanderthal. And it was just such a good article in the context of what we were just talking about, how things change, new information, Your new evidence is just flip everything upside down.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I find so fascinating about the supposed layperson obsession with just trusting science is that the kind of what you're alluding to, Sam, is that the conclusions and the established principles change on a very regular basis. I mean, I will be 38 this summer, and I remember when, eggs were horrible for your heart, and then they were good for you, and they were bad for you. And like cholesterol was good, then cholesterol was bad. I mean, all these different things that like go in cycles, right? No, latest studies say that X, Y, and Z is like bona fide fact. Everybody needs to change your entire life around this discovery, right? And then you fast forward 10 years. Turns out this thing that we've been telling you guys all to do, turns out it causes cancer and you might die. Oh, okay. So anybody in that decade between the first point and the second point who questioned, even like dared to think that maybe you were wrong or this might not be as adamantly true as you're claiming it to be, that person, some kind of a fringe nut job, whacked out individual, but education, regardless of education level, whatever the established consensus is, if you disagree, you're a crazy person. And it's like,
eggs are
so.
good.
So last point there. So it's like, okay, so if you have now pivoted away from the original position and now claim that the opposite is true, or that at least the first one is false, are you not now the nut? How are you, if like apply the exact same principle that you've been applying to everybody else to yourself by default? Are you not a nut job then at this now? And like that seems to just go over his head. It blows me away every time. Like, wow, you guys that's naive. Your memory's that short. Like, what the heck's happening? But anyway, welcome to the stream, Jamie. How you doing? I get the computer rebooted.
Yes, it's working now. Oh, hey, here. Speaking of that, let's see. Oh, shoot. Oh, I blew it. I forgot. I don't have I have to do commercials now.
Hang on, what?
Here you go.
What on earth?
I don't know what's happening right now.
Almost done. Remember those commercials, don't you, John? Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Oh, yeah.
Almond Joy Mounds. Almond Joy sometimes, Mounds don't. Sorry. Sometimes they fall flat,
Yeah. No, I get. No, I thought you were saying. I think you were trying to play something, and it was. YouTube commercial was like coming through first.
Yeah, that's what happened. You went to me too quick, so I was like, I blew it.
Oh, gotcha. Did you cancel your premium?
Yeah, because everything's canceled. I'll probably within a week or two be able to change that back because I got to start donating to everybody again. So everybody got cut off, but don't
stress about that, brother. It ain't no thing. I was talking about like you cancel your like no commercials.
Yeah, that was part of it too. No, I won, but yeah.
I'd tell you what was crazy is out of nowhere. Like, so I've had a membership, right? And then out of nowhere, or like the premium deal, and then out of nowhere today, I started seeing commercials, and it was like I got like an update of like, you can get premium for $11.99 or whatever it is a month, and I'm like, I've literally had this for 2 years now. Like, why am I? What happened to it? Why did it disappear? And why am I having to like resubscribe for membership? I was like, it's very strange.
Oh, I know. It's nice not having the commercials, I gotta say.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hi, Jamie. Hi, Jackson.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, John.
Good to see you.
What's up, Fro? How you doing? And Jackson, how you guys doing tonight?
Good. Happy 2-year anniversary.
Right now, I'm just enjoying my last day, my last day of the weekend before I head back to work the next day.
Oh, you work on Sunday?
No. I work. I work Monday through Friday, but like I work the night shift, so technically I start on Sunday.
Gotcha. Well,
nice. Aren't you going to school? Sorry, John.
No, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just saying you're schooling too, aren't you? Or do you not want to say it's when?
No, I just graduated this December with my associates. Right now, I'm just funding for my my bachelor's now.
Oh, congratulations on
Thank
the
you.
on the degree. What do you want to get your bachelor's in?
I think I'm gonna get my bachelor's in philosophy. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Who do you want to study? Like what philosophers or which school do you hold to, or whatever you want to say, however you want to call it?
It'll probably be like you mean which philosophy do I hold personally?
Yeah, that and or which and what are you gonna want to study or specialize in?
I was thinking like I haven't decided what I want to specialize in yet. As far as my as far as my own personal philosophies go, like it's I've how would I say I've been really studying Augustine and Thomas Aquinas lately. So for right now, I think I'd be somewhere in between those two.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. I mean, those are the bigger ones and names in Catholicism, right? I mean, really, that people usually are. I mean, isn't there?
And that's the thing with lesser people, you don't really hear about their writings as much. And so, like, right now, I'm just waiting on a work by Duns Scotus, so I have that too. But I also have something from what's his name? I have something from Ligori. So, like, he was a bit of a philosopher in his own right. So, like, I'm kind of learning from him as well.
Didn't Augustine do, what was it, the 5 ways? Was that something that he did?
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about there.
You know, he did like the first cause, or the octus.
Oh,
octus
yeah,
Purim.
no, you're definitely referring to Aquinas then, yes.
Oh, Aquinas. That's right. Okay, not Augustine. Okay.
You guys, did you know that? Well, there's the foremost so-called Augustine scholar. So that's what they said anyway. His name's Ken Wilson. There's lots of Ken Wilsons out there, just so you know. But he says that it's pretty much clear, and the Calvinists say it too. The bigger name scholars in Calvinism admit this, I guess, that Augustine was really he was a Manichaean. And this scholar says the Manichaean, it was the Manichaeans, which were considered a heretical group, and then the Neoplatonists and the Gnostics were the only sects, quote unquote, that held to a determinism. And this is so apparently the first 400 years of the church, there was literally no Orthodox whatsoever. And the Stoics also held to it, but those were the only groups before Augustine. He kind of blessed it, apparently. So for 400 years, nobody, and there's a lot of writings from the church fathers that seem to actually speak against it, even, which I was shocked to hear that. But I think
speak against what exactly? You're not making
determinism.
No, definitely.
Like Calvin and Luther apparently held to, or they would appeal to Augustine, was the oldest person they could find, but they had limited access, I think, to some of the early church fathers. But, and I'm not making any conclusions about it. This is just something I'm hearing about, and like, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, ultimately that's not our source or whatever. But
today the church has repudiated the idea of divine determinism. Now, when Augustine held that, again, like the distance between our time and Augustine's is cannot be exaggerated. Thing about it is, like, when Augustine was alive, the delineations between heresy and orthodoxy were something that were still being parsed out. So when Augustine was when Augustine was putting together his theology and even his magnum opus, Civiati Dei, right? What was going on there is that it was his attempt to rather kind of make the distinctions, make the boundaries between heresy and orthodoxy more, I guess, what you would say tangible. And he got some things wrong, but he got a lot of things right. And so that's why he's a doctor of the church, because ultimately what he got right has influenced the church in her theology more than what he has gotten wrong, which was picked up by Luther and Calvin.
Well, that's interesting for sure. There's no, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that have become so dogmatic in a variety of ways in the modern times that I would wager a significant percentage of people back then would look at some of the arguments that we have now and are just kind of like, okay, so that's not what we said. That's not exactly what we meant, because sometimes I reread some of the things that this is the foundational principle of X, Y, and Z, and you go and like read it, you're like, okay, I'm not quite sure how you extrapolated that one out there, but that's just me. But real quick, what's up, Jackson? How you doing? Welcome to the stream, man.
I would have been here earlier, but I was out with some friends doing some sinning.
Smuggling more salamanders?
No, I wasn't doing that, but there's something like that kind of pissed me off today. They're trying to pass more legislation about the Lacey Act, which is you can't transport animals into the country anymore. You can't transport them across state lines.
Wow.
So it's basically going to end the reptile hobby.
Dude,
it's already...
You can't transfer reptiles across state lines? Like what?
Unless they're on some white list or something, which I don't get it.
Which means you're allowed to drop them off at the border and just kind of coax them across on their own.
Right.
Well, the iguana.
So here's the real question.
Go ahead.
So here's the real question: is there going to be a new lizard border patrol? And
apparently,
like, are we going? No, I don't mean for like humans transporting them. I mean, like, is there going to be a barrier between states? I mean, because I'm pretty sure that there's got to be some lizards that run across like the Texas-New Mexico border. Like, I'm pretty sure that's happening. Yeah. I mean,
iguanas probably go from Florida to Georgia every now and then.
Right. So I mean,
we can't have them in cages, baby iguanas in cages. Are you kidding?
So I mean, are we going to start tagging them? Like, are we going to track them with satellites? Like, something needs to be done here. Like, if we're going to do this,
the skill patrol.
All in.
I mean, at this point, I tell you,
you're being the slammer for accidentally finding an iguana on your own property and taking it as a pet.
I think you can hunt them. You can hunt them, right?
It's already passed the House and it's going to pass the Senate. So,
well, there needs to be a. It would be very interesting to see, like, okay, so senator and representatives, have you guys thought this through? Because I'm quite certain there's little children who have captured lizards when they've been on road trips, and mother and father have no idea that child has lizard at the back of the van.
Yeah.
Like, so
that
what
child's
happened?
getting 20.
I mean, exactly. Like, are we gonna like have to start adjudicating youthful offenders for lizard transport? I mean, seriously, I know that I did that as a kid. I personally did that at least once as a child.
Yeah, I did that a bunch of times.
I mean,
it is an immediate 30 years to life if you're caught.
Isn't that a latent form of racism to discriminate against species like that?
Yeah, speciest. By the way, I don't like babies in cages, just so you guys
those
all
are
know.
our distant cousins.
That's
They're practically human.
That's true.
If lizards always give rise to lizards, does that mean we're all lizards?
Well, they're practically human. They're like one leap
shut
away.
up. I didn't come from no monkey.
What's up, Kelvin? Welcome to the stream. How you doing?
Good evening.
How you been?
Not so bad, not so bad. I've been off work for about almost 2 months now. I'm about to go back in about a week, I think. Although I'm not sure yet if they're changing, because I think they might have changed the policy for mandate and that sort of thing. So I might have to still deal with all that, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to worry about that at this point.
Yeah. Take it as it comes.
Exactly.
So you might have the run into the mandate. Is that what you're saying? You're not sure?
Yeah, and I'm not going to ask anybody yet about it. And at this point, I'm just still staying as far away from work as possible until I actually have to go back. So I'm just something that hit me as far as.
What state are you in?
Maryland.
Oh man, so very close to the devil's lair.
Well, that's Fro's favorite state anyway.
Yeah, aside from like New Jersey and California, I think it's pretty much just gone as you can get. Although we do have a Republican governor, but I think he's just that doesn't really mean much.
Rhino, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's get real. Romney was governor of Massachusetts, so I mean,
Okay, but if we're getting real, let's just get more honest here. Republicans are just Democrats 5 years ago. Let's face it.
well, that's
I mean,
also
come
true.
on.
Yeah,
That's
no,
also
Republican in Maryland. That's a whole lot. Yeah, that's.
Well, what always cracks me up is the talking point. Okay, so when Trump was like claimed to be a right-wing extremist, I just laughed in people's faces. I mean, like, you guys are so dumb and so ignorant of basic history. It's embarrassing. He's further to the left than John F. Kennedy. You freaking morons. Like, so are you now arguing that JFK was like a right-wing extremist, like a freaking Nazi or something? Like, come on, folks. Let's think about this for just 2 seconds here. If JFK is further to the right than Trump, then that means that Trump is further to the left than JFK. Like, hello, think a little bit, think that one through for just a second. It's to get me every time, man. But to your point on like the Republicans being left, I mean, some of their policy positions that are put forth by the establishment are just, it's like, man, the red hunt needs to return is all I gotta say, because we've got freaking commies everywhere.
And it seems like the idiot pendulum just swings from one direction to the other. Because I've always just been independent, and it's interesting because when I only started really paying any inkling of attention to politics was like 9/11, and at that point I was like barely in my 20s, and that's when it was like, oh, Bush, Republicans, oh, screw all them, and then at some point, well, 2009, I did vote for Obama, and it was really just to troll racist people. I mean, I don't like racist people. I think racism is idiotic. But at that, I knew so little about politics. I already knew it, so I was like, well, I want to see a black president. That'd be kind of cool. Like, that was pretty much my. I mean, and I listened to whatever I listened to at the time, but that was it. But as soon as he started bailing everybody out, I realized it was just.
We talking about Obama?
Yeah, it became clear that he was just the same old. And I was just like, okay. And then at some point, I purchased a tool of living, shall I say? And then I realized, like, oh, wait a minute, these guys want to take this tool away from me, like this tool of living away from me. Then at that point, that's when I became a one-issue voter, pretty much. Beyond that, and then everything else happened. So.
What's the tool of living? Are you talking about?
Come on.
Is it a gun? I'm a Canadian dude. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, cool. Just making sure. Yeah, are we not allowed to say gun? Is that like bad for the stream or something?
I don't know. I don't know if it is or not, but
well, there at this point, if you can't recognize that a significant percentage of people in positions of power across Western civilization are full-scale power-mongering individuals who want to establish oligarchy and the technocracy and all that kind of stuff they talk about. They say it out loud that that's their objective. Like, if you tell me publicly that your objective is X, and then somebody else tells me, no, that's not what they're trying to do. It's like, why are you making things up, man? I'm literally quoting so-and-so who said this is what they wanted to do. Like, which one of us is the idiot here? Like, you're claiming, I'm like, yeah, it's conspiracy theory. Like, really? That's what they said, not me. I didn't make it up. They said they want to do this. It's pretty amazing.
I've never once voted.
You've never voted, Jackson?
Never voted. Never will either. Especially now I'm going to be a felon, but that's beside the point. I would never vote.
Vote with your wallet.
Yeah, Slavic, what's up, man? Welcome to the screen.
Jackson?
Yeah.
Have you almost voted? Like, were you like almost going to vote, and then you're like, nah, I'm not doing that.
No, I've never been close to voting. I've always just thought it was stupid, the electoral college system, and they're both the same side anyway. I mean, in my opinion, I hate both sides.
What kind of voting system would you want?
Pure popular vote, I guess. I'm not.
No, that's cancer. I would never want that.
Yeah, then everything turns into California. You sure you want that?
I don't know.
I don't think you want that. I live in California.
Well, I'm okay with homeless people not making open turds on my sidewalk. Thank you.
No, it's worse than that.
Oh, it's much worse than that. But yeah,
they can
but that's
smash
bad
into
enough.
your window, break your window of your car, and take your stuff. The police won't even show up.
I mean, heck, what do you?
And they'll
what do
tax
people
the
think,
crap out of you, especially if you're a small business owner.
what do people think is going to happen when mayors and police chiefs make public announcements that they will not be enforcing X, Y, and Z laws? Like, oh no, to your point, Sam, if they break into your car, we will not be coming. I mean, what do you think criminals think right there? Oh, I don't have to worry about getting arrested if I commit this crime, and this crime. Oh, cool. Let's just do those crimes then. I mean, like, why even bother with a lot of the other ones? Because, I'm going to leave those to the idiots. I'm going to go.
Why would you not do a crime then at that point? Like, because I guess you don't consider yourself a criminal, but if it's free game, would you be down to break into a car?
My moral standard won't allow it.
But it's like, what moral standard when it's like, they're not gonna do anything.
No, you make it. I mean, you have a point.
Well, no, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, and we look at what's happening across the, all the different cities that have been taking these policy positions, and I mean, you have broad daylight armed robberies going down, like in the middle, like high-end stores in the dead center of what used to be luxury. They never had hardly any crime stuff, and now it's like, oh guys, hey, let's do a quick flash mob and like roll down to XYZ store and just grab like, I don't know, let's grab a couple $100,000 worth of stuff and bail, and like wait at the camera as we walk out the door because we're not going to get arrested. I mean, like, we don't understand where all this crime is coming from.
Do you think if everybody robbed a car, do you think then they would do anything? Because right now there's like a small group of people robbing cars. But if we all robbed cars, you think then they would do something about it? This big pandemic of people robbing cars?
Well, at that point, what are they going to do about it if we live in a pure democracy? I mean, you think the voters are going to be like, oh, if the politician now says, let's say we go to Jackson, let's say we go to pure traditional democracy, right? And popular vote, everybody decides to say, want to go rob cars. Well, you said you want to go to popular vote, so that is democracy.
I know, but I'm kind of a contradiction.
Okay. So hang on. So you don't hang on, Jackson. We have to clarify this real quick because you said you don't like the electoral college, and you don't like our current system. And I'm
saying if I believed in democracy, I would vote this way.
Jackson, would you prefer a benevolent ruler, like a benevolent king?
A benevolent dictator, yes.
You would prefer that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I think what we actually need at this point is a reintroduction of the concept of the Roman. Oh man, was it Roman consul? Yeah, that got appointed for a year, basically had dictatorial power for a year, and could go through and like basically clean house, and they were indemnified from any kind of repercussion, prosecution, etc., after for anything they did inside of that year period.
Would there?
And I think we need to reinstitute that. Somebody needs to come in and clean house because.
Would you have a liberal and a conservative consul, like they did? I mean, kind of. I mean, they had the patrician.
Yeah, I mean,
the double classes.
Well, the problem with that is that there's not really such a thing as liberal or conservative. These are more or less descriptor of behaviors rather than anything that's kind of tangible, right? Or rather, positions being held. Like liberal and conservative, it doesn't translate as well as like capitalist, communist. It's not like that. Like I am a liberal by someone's definition, and yet I'm a conservative by someone else's. I kind of
you don't think the description of Roman politics in like the Gracchus brothers couldn't be described as exactly what like liberal. Well, I mean, unless you're talking about like leftist versus. I mean, I agree with you kind of and all that, but I think the archetypes of what these people groups do, based on their their circumstances, are pretty similar throughout all of history.
Is there like a era in history that any of you think would be like that's exactly like we, of course, LPP or LPP just said, but like do any of you think like that was the time we need to get back to that exact moment?
Well, yeah, here's the thing. If you want to adopt the government of Rome, I'm not entirely opposed to that. As long as you just don't want to adopt its ethics, I'm okay with that.
Hey, I got a quick question for Jackson. And I mean, it's a serious question. I don't want to sound like I'm, poking fun or anything, but it's a serious question. If evolution is true, does that mean that we can blame armed robbery on evolution?
I don't see how you could blame it on creation or evolution.
So
it's just chemistry.
If evolution is true, then evolution is responsible for the rise of intelligence, right?
Sure.
No, there's no intelligence.
If evolution is true, then evolution is responsible for the rise in social construct, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So why isn't it responsible for armed robbery?
Well, I think it would. There would be a selection pressure against behavior like that. I think it's just apparent individuals that are doing these.
Well, apparently armed robbery doesn't think so because it's growing fast and it hasn't been selected against yet.
I want to push against Jackson on this one point here. Thing about it is, there have been entire people groups dedicated to the pastime of armed robbery. One of them is called the Saracens, which literally is Arabic for bandit. And the reason being is because the Arabic people, the Saracen people, were literally hired mercenaries. And their entire way of life was based on caravan robbing and mercenary work. So, like, these behaviors aren't necessarily rooted out as a rule.
And more primal than that, do not animals steal from each other?
Well, you still have people groups today. You have the guerrillas and the freedom fighters, and you have all of these people in the countries that we've been warring against. They would say the same thing about us too, right?
Yeah, no, actually,
I got a quick question.
Oh, hold on. But before you say that, to answer T-Rock's question, because I'm not sure if Jackson ever did that, I would say that, yes, you could say that like evolution might be indirectly responsible for the processes of these things, but that also does not take away someone's direct responsibility and choices to do them. I'd say that would be a fair answer.
I got a quick question. Specifically, somebody was here saying that he doesn't like racism, but if evolution is true, isn't that how we became human, by being racist, right? Like we stayed away from Neanderthals and other, let's say, not human.
Well, given the fact that there was a bunch of inbreeding between Neanderthals and I mean,
we didn't hate them that much.
I mean, apparently, well, no. Apparently, there were some woke people back then too, and there were some folks that run around the activated area, being activists for inclusivity between all people groups. So, there was some mixed breeding that went down.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying to become more human, you had to stay away from Neanderthal.
Oh yeah, humans are very tribal, no doubt about that. And so you kind of get what we would call racism today as kind of in some way biologically evident from our ancestral past. But also understand these people were close enough together that we could talk to them like we're talking to each other now. So like, although Neanderthal is kind of distinct from Homo sapien, these people were still very much human beings. And therefore, they could actually come into our tribes. We could come into theirs.
Well, I think the point that Slavic was trying to make, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this ideology, like eugenics, for example, eugenics would be something that would be consistent with a Darwinian ideology because as you have these superior groups emerging, you would want to remove the inferior groups for the betterment of society, right? That was the whole idea behind eugenics.
Exactly the same point I'm saying is that if you believe in evolution, racism isn't bad or it's not evil. It's just another.
Well, again, not necessarily. I also affirm evolution, and I am simultaneously a pious Christian at the same point. So what I would say there is that evolution is the world as it is without God, without God's goodness. Okay, it is a very miserable, dark, cruel place. And so what is true about the world is that the strong absolutely have a right to dominate the weak. That's what we see in nature. That's certainly how the Romans and Greeks saw themselves. That's how the Nazis saw themselves.
Yeah, but the evolutionary, atheistic evolutionary paradigm would be the same. It would be a world where this God uses a system of death to create life. And so it would be no different. You have this long history of this death machine. God created a death machine because he couldn't get it right the first time.
You're kind of inconsistent.
Take any ideology and make it into something.
And here's the issue, Sam. You're very inconsistent there, I would argue, because what you worship a God that actively allowed death into his creation. Okay,
but he didn't create death. He didn't create a death machine. He created man that was made in the image of God, and then man sinned, and then the man fell under the curse.
Is problematic in and of itself for your position, Sam.
No,
the mere fact that he allowed it is problematic.
Yeah, well, no, it's not. See, because I don't personally hold to like a hard Calvinistic position where God uses death as a tool. See, death is a result of people disobeying God. That is part of the curse of man. So your position would be God saying, "Hey, look, I can't create man first. I'm going to create this machine, this death machine, and I'm going to run these organisms through it until I achieve man, like a chef putting toppings on a pizza and sending it through the oven."
Well, here's the issue, because like what the position you have, you're not distinguishing what the type of death that's going on, because when you read the very first chapter of Genesis, it's abundantly clear death was always part of God's plan. Like for instance, when he tells the first human beings he creates to
are you a Calvinist?
No, I'm not a Calvinist.
Just for clarification, So just for clarification, there's two trains of thoughts, and so one of them you would have death. You would have, so for example, when Joseph was traded into slavery, right? What did he say? He said, "What you meant for evil, God used for good."
Correct.
So there's from my position, there's a difference between God creating this evil act, and on the other hand, you have this free will choice that is made that generates this evil act, and then God takes that evil act and uses it for good. Big difference, and that difference needs to be acknowledged if you're gonna say that I have the same problem. But that's a tu quo fallacy anyway, because my position has no bearing on yours.
And here's what I mean to say. So for one thing, right? Whether or not God created death or not is kind of irrelevant. He actively knew it could exist and allowed it into his creation. But furthermore, what I would say is that death in and of itself is part of God's original creation. Even that's revealed in the first chapter of Genesis, because what he tells the first human beings is that to subdue the earth. It's a reference to
a complete misrepresentation. That's a complete misrepresentation of what
literally says to take the earth.
Yeah, but that's the animal. See, and when God tells man to subdue the earth, he's telling man that because they are a special creation, different than the animals, we were created differently, then we have dominion over them. So according to your model, that wouldn't be the case. We would be the tail end of this death machine, and then.
Specifically, what's being introduced is human death, not animal. God doesn't really. You've completely
clarified. Take turns now, guys. Take turns.
Fro, you have completely misused what subdue is in Genesis. Plants they don't have brains. You can't. They're not like a dog or a goat that you can train to be here or be
Genuinely
there.
doesn't matter.
They just grow where they grow because of ground chemistry. So when he says subdue the
Again, that
earth,
genuinely
that means put the plants where you want them and put the animals where you need them. And that is what subduing is. It's not some form of slavery or guaranteed death or anything else.
Well,
Share my screen, John.
like,
Share my
all you
screen.
have to do is simply use the text in a common sense way. You can't really enslave like.
Well, hold on. That's an arbitrary statement right there, because I could say, hold on. I could say the same to you. I could say that you're not using the text in a common sense.
Okay, boys, you're talking over each other, guys.
It's the same term that is actually
Well,
used.
you're just slapping and running now. You're making rude comments, and I don't think you need to do that.
Am I on mute right now? Am I on mute right now? I don't think I'm on mute right now.
No, but when you interrupt me, I genuinely don't care.
Okay, so I'm trying to get this to where we can like stop talking over each other and actually have good back and forth, because nobody can understand anybody that's talking. So let's calm down for a second. Before I let you guys talk again, Jamie, what were you wanting to share?
He mentioned a logical fallacy, and I just was putting the definition up on the screen so people could learn it.
Okay, gotcha. Appreciate that.
Quo que or whatever. It's just like U2 fallacy. So when someone brings an argument and then the response is like, yeah, but you have a similar or same problem as well. It doesn't answer the challenge. It just says you too. Yeah, you too.
What aboutism? That's what they call it now.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I said my position has no bearing on hers. But the only thing that I would ask Fro, and I don't want to talk over either, but when you say a comment such as, oh well, if you just have a common sense reading, it's like, well, wait a minute, why are you going there? I could, that's an arbitrary statement. I could say the same thing to you. I could say, Fro, how come you don't have a common sense reading, right? So it's kind of like a, I don't know,
Well, because
like a low blow, right? If you want to keep it professional, that's fine. Okay. But if you want to just start throwing out reckless comments like that, then it's just going to turn into a dumpster fire. And sometimes that happens.
Well, I apologize. That was not my
We could do
intention.
that here, maybe, probably too.
No, that was not my intention. What I was trying to say is that, like, the word subdue means dominate. There's a very violent connotation to it.
No,
and you can't really be violent to plants.
There is no violent connotation in that. It is literally manage them, subdue them. You're the head of the planet.
No,
use them for what they're intended for. That has nothing whatsoever to do with violence.
No, the term there
I think
literally
it's interesting
means
that people can read the
dominate.
same thing and come to different conclusions.
No, the term there is like every other word in the English language. It's got a particular context based on what the subject matter in the current discussion is. So it's just like the day-age fallacy, where you go grab the context from somewhere else and illicitly port it into the local conversation. That's what you're doing here, is you're grabbing the meaning from a completely different context and trying to shove it in here where it doesn't belong.
No, it's the dictionary term.
Are you guys taking this from like English or the original Hebrew?
Originally,
yeah, it doesn't matter. Hey,
either way, the dictionary doesn't dictate to me how I use words. I use them.
Right, the Hebrews do.
So, Fro, let me, if you don't mind me asking you a question or two, actually a couple of questions. Okay, so do you hold to a literal Adam and Eve?
At the moment, I can't say I do. Now, I can be convinced of a literal Adam and Eve, but I think from the other portions of the whole of Genesis that are clearly meant to be idiomatic and symbolic, I don't see why Adam and Eve should not be symbolic as well.
Well, I think, I think most of us here know how to do like a normal, honest reading of a book. So I understand the difference, and I think most of us understand the difference between what should be, literal or poetic or something like that.
Not necessarily, no.
But in the Ten Commandments, so you reject where God specifically says that, He made man in His image, and He made us in His image. You reject that?
Hold on. No, I don't reject that. But hold on, someone's calling me real quick.
Hey, Slavic, do you believe in free will or predetermined life? Everything's predetermined.
I believe in free will and Molan.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, what was the question again, Sam?
Oh, yeah. So,
Molinism is?
So in the Ten Commandments, so if you look at Exodus chapter 20 verse 11, it says and this is God speaking. Okay, so it says, "For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them,
Sure.
and He rested on the seventh day."
Yes.
So do you reject that?
Yes, for one reason. What's going on there is that this is specifically referring to the Ten Commandments, and the same thing is mentioned in the Ark of the Covenant. So what's going on there? Like you said that I think all we need to do is just read the book to have an honest reading.
There's many references.
I kind of reject that because here's the reason. The way that you get an honest reading from a book is by understanding the context. And so oftentimes to understand the context, the cultural context of the Near East is what should inform our understanding of the Bible. So
are you
wait,
like I'll wait my turn, but I got to say something.
So here's the thing. When God says that He's made the world in 6 days, 6 means something. It's basically the time of temple of a dedication. It's a time of dedication that you use to dedicate something to God. For instance, it took Solomon to build his temple to God in 6 years. It took 6 months to build the Ark of the Covenant, and it also took 6 days for God to build the earth.
Okay, let me make a point real quick.
So hold on, let me finish mine first. So what's going on here is that when God says that He made the world in 6 days, what the cultural context should inform on us is that God had taken the world and made it a temple, not that He had taken the world and made it in 6 literal days. That cultural context is what should inform our understanding of the first chapters of Genesis, and I would argue the whole of the Torah. Go ahead, Rock.
So, a couple quick points. Earlier, you briefly mentioned a Hebrew dictionary as a support for your particular position, but let me point out that you don't have the original Hebrew text of the Old Testament, and you certainly don't have a Hebrew dictionary from ancient Hebrew.
Did the Hebrew text survive or not? Because if you're arguing that the Bible didn't survive and we can't trust it, that's an issue for both of us.
That's not what I said. Let me finish my point here.
What do you mean?
What I said was you don't have the original text. You absolutely don't have an original Hebrew dictionary. All you have is a modern Hebrew dictionary.
So the text was
which has basically got a modern philosophy attached to it. But definitions of words are always user defined anyway. So, without an ancient Hebrew dictionary to say the word for subdue absolutely means violence, you've basically got modern philosophy as your backup for that and nothing else.
Okay, so the Bible is corrupted. I wouldn't want to die on that.
Hold on. So logically, your position would entail that we can't, and as you said, we cannot hold to a normal, honest reading of the Scripture. Your position entails that you have to hold on. Your position entails that you have to side with arbitrarily, with whichever consensus you feel fits better with what you want to believe. So now you are the final reference point, because when you responded, and I will grant you that you have people on your side where you get your information, and you would call those people scholars. But the way that you said it would be, there was like a hidden premise smuggled in there that only your side comes to that conclusion, that your side is the correct side, or as if this isn't something that's even disputed. Is that your position? That there's a consensus and they're all in agreement, and this isn't even something that's discussed? Is that your position?
No, not necessarily. As I said, what I mean is that you can do an honest reading of Genesis.
Let's not be disingenuous then. Let's use our vocabulary a little bit better when we make assertions like that.
Well, if you're going to talk over me, I guess I'll talk over you. But anyway, what's going on? I never said that you couldn't read Genesis and get a very
both of you, if you guys don't not talk over each other, we're gonna have to break out the freaking clock, and I'm tired and I don't want to have to run the damn clock. So
all right, we don't need the clock.
When people in their position stay yield and then shut the hell up for at least 30 seconds. Good gravy. Okay, go ahead.
That's hard.
Okay, so who's talking first? Do you want to make your
Why does dominate imply violence? That doesn't make any sense. Even in Latin, the word dominus just simply means lord.
Well, yeah. That's what I mean. It means a place of authority to rule over. You can't really rule over plants, so to speak, right? It makes much more sense that this would be used in the larger context of the animal fauna going on.
So,
Further,
so we don't farm. We don't do farming. We don't do farming and planting, and we don't plant trees and crops and gardening. We don't rule over the plants too.
We don't cut them down at our choosing.
I guess you make a good point there, I suppose. All right, I'll concede that much.
Can I jump in here quickly? Yeah, my original question, how we got into this Genesis thing, my original question was, if you hold to an atheistic evolution view, there is no such thing as racism. Like, it's not evil. Because they don't even have a morality to hold to, unless it's a Christian morality.
Agreed. In pure naturalism, there's no standards. So in a theistic evolutionist view, you might try to argue, certain types of immorality or morality come from wherever, but in a purely naturalistic view, you don't have that anymore.
Well, hold on.
All you have is chemistry made all morality.
T-Rock, I'm going to agree with you, but I'm actually we are in agreement from our positional point, but I'm going to push back on what you said, and let me explain why. Because on a theistic evolutionary type paradigm, how do we know who exactly is human still?
What do you mean?
How do we know that? I mean, we still have the DNA of the oh gosh, we were just talking about it earlier. In fact, I think I found the article here about Neanderthal. I mean, we still have Neanderthal DNA, and because there was no literal Adam and Eve, no literal human line created in the image of God with a genealogy directly to Jesus, we don't have an explanation for sin. We don't have a savior. We don't have well, let me explain. So we don't even have a complete human lineage. For all we know, I am not bound by these laws because I'm not even human. It's possible, right? We might discover that tomorrow.
No, that's a fair point. I don't disagree with that at all.
We're not all sons of Adam. We're not all sons of Adam. We're not all bound by the curse. And there's no genealogy. There's no literal Adam, no literal Jesus. Go ahead.
And that's the thing. That's a very fatalistic way of looking at it, because you're defining humanity by the understanding of our genetics. That like in order to be human, you need to come from this so and so people. That's not how God. Again, that's not how God says. Because when God says when he made humans, when he made mankind, he made them in the image of God. It is that sapience, that spark of intelligence, that understanding, that the fact that humans are unique in the whole of creation is in and of itself proof of humanity.
Yeah, that's an eisegesis from the texts. Okay,
not at all. Because hold on. Sorry, you first. Go ahead.
Hold on. The Bible's very clear that mankind, it's a special kind from the animal kind. If you even understand the creation event, that God created man after he created the animals. We are different. God created man specially and uniquely to have dominion over all of these things. God created Adam and Eve, put them in the garden. They sinned, they were cursed, and they were cast out of the garden. And one of the results of that was death. But if you reject a literal Adam and Eve with all of their descendants, which we can show scientifically, by the way, I can refute your argument if you want to go down that line. But from a purely biblical standpoint, God created Adam and Eve, and we are all descendants of them, and that's why we are all affected by the curse. But if you reject that, then I'm not related to Adam and Eve. At least I might not be.
So real quick then. Sam, your point's very valid, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier. In pure naturalism, chemistry is the only explanation you have for the rise of intelligence and morality. Now, I'm not a naturalist, a pure naturalist like that, obviously, and I'm not a theistic evolutionist either. But in theistic evolution, you kind of have this gray line that you basically cannot define, and that is, when does the science of evolution end, and when does the I'll call it interference or whatever you want to, but when does God come back into the picture? Where exactly does that happen in the theistic time, in the theistic evolutionist timeline?
Well, I can answer that for you. Thing about it is, God never really is never really leaves his presence from his creation. As I said, because like this whole idea of violence and death, this was fundamental part to his creation. Okay, what death was, the death that was entered into the world was the death of man. It was human death. Right, like again, think of the Garden of Eden when the Satan tempted Eve. He said, "Surely you shall not die." Now, ultimately, he lied because she did eventually die. Right, that was the death that was entered in, because in God's plan, man had been created as something that would be immortal, to live and reign with him, as is intended now in the covenant of Jesus Christ.
So, real quick,
when we disobeyed God, what had happened is we introduced our own death.
So, quick question. I didn't quite get what you said earlier. Are you advocating for a literal Adam and Eve?
No, I'm not. Well, right now, how would I put it? I'm not decided on the issue. Hold on, let me explain. Right now, I would say that I am not for a literal Adam and Eve, but I'm not totally against the idea either.
Okay. So you kind of made my point. You have no idea where the dividing line is between the end of science and evolution and the beginning of God and man.
Don't say that and again, this is the same problem I'm talking about, because you're defining humanity by terms of how we're related to Adam, rather how the Bible defines us, that we have that we have the image of God, that we're made in the image of God. It's the image of God that makes humans human. It's not our relation to Adam or Eve. It is the fact that we are special creations of God.
What does that mean, image of God? Because I know there's different views on that. Do you hold that like we have the attributes of God, like free will, like wisdom or knowledge or reason? Is that how you hold it, or how do you hold that image of God?
So the image of God, or in Latin is the imago Dei, is the fact that yes, that we do have attributes of God in us, that we have creation, that we have this understanding of natural law, that there are things that are right and wrong that we know by nature alone, right? For instance, even Jackson would affirm that murder universally is seen as wrong. And we would attribute that to the natural law that God had written in us, the fact that the imago Dei in us, because we're made in the image of God, we have this fundamental knowledge of right and wrong, of moral law. And moreover, because of that, how should I say this? Because of that, we're able to share in some of the attributes of God, namely the creative force, right? So that's what it means to be the imago Dei, what we understand as the sapience of man that is unique among the whole of the animal and plant kingdoms.
So I got another question on that. So if it's the image of God is those attributes, would you say that babies in the womb are not human, or they do not have the image of God yet? Just because they don't have anything except potential.
No, you see, that's a thing. Oh, I don't accept that infants in the room only have potential. I'd say they have active forces in them already too, and I think science actually science backs me up on that somewhat, because what we found that babies as early as 3 months in gestation can have dreams, right? So these aren't people with these aren't like these aren't potential people. They're people with potential.
So 1 second. I'm trying to understand. You're saying that by being in the creative force of God, right? Or participating in it, that's how we get our image of God. Babies in the womb don't create anything, and they have no potential. They only have potential to create if they grow into a human, like adult or whatever, or a child that could create something. But in the womb, they're little just developing.
They don't have that. You can't say potential. You got to say status.
Yeah. So I used to hold to that kind of view, that it's like our attributes of our like mind and free will and moral stuff But I see just a philosophical argument for the problem with that is that it makes people that are in a coma, well, are they human? Because they have no creative, they just like a vegetable, right? Now, I know there's some stuff.
Well,
Go ahead.
So being made in the image of God, at Adam and Eve, and there are, I don't want to say the verdict's out, okay? So let's be honest. It's something that people still discuss, but Adam and Eve, Adam specifically was made in the image of God, in that he was sinless. He had not sinned, and his wife had not sinned either, but they were given one rule. And so when the literal Adam and Eve disobeyed God, that's what sin is. But Fro's position is going to muddy that water up. So sin is the disobedience of God. Adam and Eve,
I never
the
denied
literal
that.
Adam and Eve. You what? You don't?
I
deny
never
that?
denied that. Of course, sin is disobedience. I was very clear with that
Yeah,
from the outset.
but see, the thing
disobedience
is when,
what introduced human death.
Yeah, so so there you go. So a literal Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and whether or not you want to say that it was death or human death, I want to know where you got those, where'd you get those humans from? What are those on your evolutionary timeline? But then you have these genealogies from Adam, literal genealogies, and the reason why those genealogies have to be taken seriously is because Christ had to come from a specific line, and that genealogy from Adam down to that line of a literal. I mean, at what point does the fairy tale stop and the real genealogy begin?
I would say around the time of Abraham, but listen, the fact
But that's
that
arbitrary. You're just making something up. You're just saying, well, I think it's
Sam,
here,
the fact
but
of the matter
who
is, you're
knows?
thinking of you're looking at this black and white again, like it either is or isn't. It's either 1 or 0. But no, there are more options than just the ones you are giving me here.
You're not under the impression that I'm just making this up, right?
Okay. The reason I'm not totally sold on the historical Adam and Eve is because the literature that they come up in, right? Genesis 1, 2, and honestly, you see these things throughout the whole of the Torah. These things are clearly allegorical. They're clearly meant to be symbolic. And
Yeah, no, they're not. That's
and again,
arbitrary.
I mentioned this before. There's huge amounts of temple theology that shows up within these works, right? And so I'm of the opinion that I'm not against a historical Adam and Eve, but at the same time, right, I find it hard to reckon a historical Adam and Eve with the very genre of Genesis.
So, Fro, what exactly do you consider the doctrine of kinsman redeemer to be?
Thank you.
How would I say? I probably am aware of what you're talking about, but under a different name. What's the doctrine of kinsman of the Redeemer?
The doctrine of kinsman redeemer means that Christ literally has to be related to every human on the planet, all the way back to Adam and Eve, in order for salvation to actually be meaningful.
There's a problem there, though. Because from our young Earth creationist view, every human, no matter what, would make him a kinsman redeemer. He could argue that the only reason that it would need to have a genealogy is because there's other humans that aren't related.
Right, and so the thing about it is, right?
But that's kind of the point, though. Is if you don't know where that split is, how can that argument have any merit whatsoever?
That would be a double-edged sword, Jamie, because without that, then you could never know. That's the problem. So you need a literal genealogy. You need everyone to be accountable to God because everyone is related to Adam, and everyone needs to be able to have a kinsman redeemer. So everyone needs to be that's why you have to have this unbroken line.
Yeah, from Adam. I mean, I think it's more about David, but I think.
And again, this is kind of the problem because understand when Jesus came onto this earth, he had he didn't have an intention to save the whole world, to save the Gentiles. He came for his people, which were the Jews.
The Bible says, "Known unto God are all of His works from the foundation."
For God so loved the what?
The Jew first, then the Greek.
Okay, here's the thing, Sam. Right? Here's the thing. Understand that when the Gospels are being written, they're being written anachronistically. All of the time that has come through, all the history has already happened. and they're relating it back to you. So when Jesus begins his ministry, he has no intention of saving the Gentiles. He's come for his people. Okay, I've let you finish, Sam. Thank you for being quiet.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so when Jesus came to this earth, right, and he started his ministry, he had no intention to save the Gentiles. It was only the Jews. But what happened? His own people were rejecting his message. So what did he do? He actually elucidated this in a parable that since his own family, his own kinsmen have rejected him, therefore maybe the people how do you say? Maybe the people on the highways, the whores, the common people, maybe they will accept me. And so that's the parable he announced, that nobody liked his message, nobody liked the kingdom of heaven, and so he now opened it to all people. So, like, the fact of the matter is, T-Rock, this idea of the fact that in order for Jesus to save everyone, they need to be genetically related to him. Jesus had no conception of that at the beginning of his ministry.
So hold on.
Give me a second real quick.
Please,
give me a second real quick.
I'm gonna die. Look, okay, hold on. And T-Rock, you can go, but I just want to say that Fro, you do not have an all-knowing God now. You've just destroyed that. You've removed that. You're saying that God didn't know this. That's what you just. That's what you just said. God didn't have a plan. You've destroyed that too.
Well, that's
a big problem. Slow down, omniscience. One of the major problems with that comment you made about Jesus had no intention or whatever, you've completely missed the fact that back in the Old Testament, where when the children of Israel inherited the promised land, at no time ever were any Jews or any Gentiles refused entry into the promised land to mingle with the Jews. They only had, just stop for a second, Fro. They just had the prerequisite that they had to obey the laws in the land. And the New Testament also tells you very openly that every city has them that preach Moses. They were teaching Jewish concepts, Old Testament concepts to the Gentiles. So all the Gentiles in the world that were getting preached to had the opportunity to follow the way that the Jews were and become part of the house of Israel, even by intermarrying. There was never, ever any proscript against Jews marrying Gentiles, as long as they kept everything inside the boundaries of the law of Moses.
So I got a quick remark on that.
Jesus wasn't racist. Thank you.
The whole point is that Isaiah 53 or 54, I forget already, it literally says that after he is resurrected, or that he will bring all nations to him, or they will be relying on his name. Isaiah 53. If that's not a prophecy, then Jesus definitely did not come for all nations, because that literally says that all nations will be relying on his name.
That's excellent. Good. Isaiah always kills it. Yep.
I'm not familiar
Christianity,
enough with Isaiah.
By the way, is an Old Testament
I'm not
concept.
familiar enough with Isaiah to make a competent response there, so I'll just hold my peace on that aspect of it.
Christianity is an Old Testament concept. It is not a New Testament concept. It's just different from everything the Old Testament taught.
That's right.
Sure.
The big problem, though, that I know is I just have to point this out is the Hebrew. I can't believe you said this earlier about the Hebrew, Fro, but no, the Hebrew language is very specific on the literal interpretation of the Bible as it is, word by word, which of course we know that every word explains a sentence, like the word sky, which is Shamayim, means water is there, and Ha Shamayim means the water is there. Just with literally 2 or 3 words, you can have an elaborate paragraph just with 2 or 3 words. This is a literal interpretation. That's why we understand what the accurate calendar is, which is a lunar calendar, what year we're at actually from the lineage. That's how we even know history, because of the literal interpretation of the Bible and how we understand. Hold on, you got to relax. Just hold on. Let me speak. I've been quiet this whole time.
Sure, go ahead.
The way we know things like Adam was over 900 years old, Noah being even 900, and so Methuselah being even older. These people have a lineage. That's how we know these things. We understand that, yes, there's a 6-day literal creation. That's why God specifies this fact over and over again, speaking to Moses face to face, probably in the form of Jesus. The Bible is beyond literal. It's beyond your understanding. And anytime that we try to pervert it or add to it or take it away, we're not only doing a disservice for ourselves, we're literally cutting off our own relationship to God. And it's really dangerous. And you got to be careful. It seems that you might be new to this, but whatever this worldly view that you have, that you've tied yourself onto, that has led you down this path, is very destructive. And it's going to end up destroying you if you don't realize that God knows everything, and the thoughts of men are foolishness. And there is such a drastic difference between the reality. Hold on, that's a double. I know that's a nice double interruption. I've been quiet for 10 minutes. Can you guys just let me make a claim? Right. So the fact is, your carnal knowledge and your foolishness of this evolutionary pseudoscience cartoon fairy tale has destroyed your ability to think and process information. That's the reality.
So let me make a continuation of that thought. I totally agree. But one of the major failings of theistic evolution when it comes to the theology of the Bible is that when they read a passage, to them it's either historical or it's some kind of allegory or poetic, when in reality it can be both simultaneously and often is.
Right.
It's kind of like if you say, tell a woman your lips are red as wine. It's obviously poetic, but does she really
T-Rock,
have
I wanted to
lips?
say something. T-Rock, there was one thing that you said earlier that really made me cringe. You said it was evolution science, and that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as evolutionary science.
I agree.
And I know
I'm
that
just
you're probably
the
using that term, right? Because that's the man known, that's the psychosis that we have to use their ridiculous terminology to even have them understand what we're saying. But that did make me cringe. There's no such thing as science and evolution. If you had one example,
I don't disagree with that.
I know. I just had to point that out. That scared me. Thanks.
So the thing about it is, just starting off from that last part, science itself is the definition that we have for it is only about 200 years old. So I'd say I would classify evolution as more, I guess, general knowledge or whatever. But in any case,
that's incorrect. No, the scientific method is 900 years old. Al Hamen.
Science as we know it today.
No, the scientific. No, you're not listening. No, the scientific method was invented 900 years ago. It's been a mainstay. It was started by the Arabs 900 years ago. Before then, it was known as knowledge, like systematic processes, which you know nothing about anyway. If you believe in evolution, you have no idea what science is. You can't give one example of it.
Well, okay, that's all I need to know about.
It's absolutely true that you don't have a slightest clue what science is.
What's going on here,
no, listen, if you have an example of science, don't run away. Don't run away, princess.
First of all, what's going on
don't run away, princess. Give me. Now you have to give us an example of science involving evolution.
It actually does say water is there.
You're scared
There's a reason for that,
Exo,
because like the Hebrews believed that there was literally water in the sky. The Hebrews believed in a domed
Yes,
earth.
I know, and you're scared to death of your own claim of evolution. So yes, there is water in the sky. That's why the sky is blue. Yeah, that's true. There's an outer space. I know. There you go. There's the satanic laughter from the evolutionists. Yes. So again, show me one example of science. Show me one example of science involving evolution, and I'll retire from the internet.
Well, so
bacteria.
to your point, bro.
Let me do that.
No, excuse me. Let's give the people what they want. Give me one thing involving science and evolution. Take your best shot.
Well, it's called bacteria. I guess you'll retire now,
nope,
right?
That's not evolution. That was easy.
Okay, well then
yeah,
you're
bacteria
anyway,
making
so
bacteria. So where's the science of evolution? Not bacteria. I didn't say science of bacteria. I said the science. Listen to this is we have a triggered demon-possessed psychopath now. So I asked for an example of science and evolution, which you can't give me. It's too easy. So nothing, as usual. This is what people do. They're scared to death of their own claim. Anytime you meet an evolutionist, they're scared to death of their own religion. You believe in evolution. It's destroyed your ability to think. You're now perving through your teeth to justify your lifestyle. That's what evolution does. You don't have a claim. That was easy.
So I would like to hear from Jackson real quick.
Incredibly ignorant on literally.
You don't have a claim. It was too easy. No claim.
I have a question for Exo. Why do we find conodont teeth in the Cambrian but no shark teeth?
There's no such thing as a Cambrian layer. How did they discover the Cambrian layer before radiometric dating ever existed? Best of luck.
Basically, I can't
nothing.
Hear you.
Exactly.
Okay,
no
you,
claim. Just another psychopath on the side. I'm talking. Was that Jackson, right? Can the psychopath relax for a second? You already crushed yourself. So Jackson, was that you or somebody else? Yep, here comes the demonic laughter from the retard lives in a cartoon. Great. Jackson, that's the problem is that you don't even know what a Cambrian layer is. They came up with the word Cambrian before radiometric dating ever existed, Jackson. Do you know how they came up with the this? We have a retard. Okay, the psychopath. I know this hurts your feelings, princess, because I crushed your religion. So we're trying to now establish some information. Just relax. It's okay, princess. I know I crushed your religion already. You don't even have a claim. So Jackson, do you know how they came up with the Cambrian layers before radiometric dating existed? Do you know how they did that, Jackson?
I would think relative methods.
So you don't know. You can just be honest and say you don't know, Jackson. It's okay.
They're called relative methods, yeah.
So you don't have a clue.
So
that's the point. So there's no claim. Hold on. I'm gonna settle this, guys. But just for the fact, if you're asking me about something and you don't even know how they came. Okay. So again, so the point is, if you're asking me about something, Jackson, and you have no idea what it is, that's not a question. That's a religious assumption or inference. So you actually have to know what you're talking about. But when it comes to evolution, we know that they don't have a slightest clue what they're talking about, and they just make it up as they go along. Yes, Jackson. you don't have a claim, Jackson. When you know how they came up with the layers of the earth before radiometric dating ever existed, then you can make a claim, Jackson. There's no such thing of your fairy tale information, Jackson. There is no finding things in layers. Some of the animals found in the so-called oldest layers of earth are still alive today. I'm sorry, evolution is crushed by a 3-year-old preschooler could crush evolution.
Oh God, that is so ignorant upon so many levels.
You have to be literally brain dead in 2022. If you still believe in evolution, you're basically demon possessed. You don't even have a claim. You're just retarded. That's all.
Hey, Fro, can you mute yourself for a minute?
Great argument, man.
Yeah, no, why do you need me to mute myself?
If anybody has a claim for evolution, we would love to discuss it because that's what people love to watch.
No, you would not love to discuss it. You're
any claim at all for science involving evolution. It would be so fun to just nail it every time.
Okay. What about endogenous retroviruses in chimps and humans?
Oh, the fact that, yes, there's no evolution. They already exist and their systems already exist. Is there any evolution that takes place? Or are you just talking about the similarities, Jackson?
Jackson, this man is a walking Dunning-Kruger effect.
So notice that there's no claim here. That's like saying, what about mosquitoes?
Oh, no, that is
yeah, what about mosquitoes and ticks and roaches? Oh, wow. There's mosquitoes, ticks, and roaches. They all have similarities, but they all have separate gene pools.
Andrew
so there's no evolution.
You're knowledgeable.
There's two people talking versus one.
Well, let me just jump in really quick. So when it comes to, and so I want to address your bacteria and your endogenous retrovirus. The part when it comes to endogenous retroviruses, what you're going to have to show is how they arose, because they require a host to live, right? We've already agreed. We already agreed on that.
Sam,
but so
where's the claim for evolution?
Hold on, Ro. I understand what you're saying, but the point is if endogenous retroviruses have to live within a host, then those are not going to be evidence for evolution.
Well, I don't see how they have to live within a host. Their viruses infect the germ cell and get passed on.
They don't require a host?
Well, viruses do, but I mean, not in the
aren't isn't that what you're calling an endogenous retrovirus, a virus that infected a genome and somehow added itself to it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do they find functions in these regions of the genome where they find these viruses? Yeah.
So let me dialogue with Jackson for just a minute. Jackson, you brought up the conodont and the shark. Now, can you explain to me real quick why you expect shark teeth to be in the so-called Cambrian?
Well, it's a marine environment. Sharks live in every marine environment there is that I can think of.
Okay,
so somebody, for the sake of the audience,
you need to blow it like 20 minutes and make it sound like
Pro, can you stop for a minute?
Bro, you already got crushed. Be quiet.
Jackson, for the sake of the audience, can you describe real quick what a conodont is?
It's kind of like a little eel-looking thing.
Yeah, kind of like a leech, sort of like maybe even a large.
Hey Sam, that's you. Go ahead and mute real quick.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Would you say it's comparable to a leech?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of like a lamprey, kind of.
Yeah, maybe a lamprey.
Yeah.
Okay, so you find conodont in the so-called Cambrian, but you don't find sharks. Do you know what happens to sharks when they die?
What? Well,
they float.
Teeth, right, but
they float.
Their teeth are constantly shedding. They shed thousands of teeth in their life.
Their teeth are also constantly.
We got a big problem, though. You're still pre-assuming that you know what a Cambrian layer is. You don't even know how they discovered the Cambrian layer. This is, again, just a religious question. There's no such thing. You still have no claims for evolution. Finding dead things in layers of Earth doesn't help evolution. That helps you hide from evolution. So there's no claim for evolution. You have to show us evidence of evolution. That's what helps evolution. So let us know
one of my points, though, is ecologically and just basic biology, biome. I don't think you need to expect to find shark teeth in what's known as the Cambrian, because when sharks die, they float, so they're not the first thing to get buried by anything. And then as far as shedding teeth, the normal process is that when teeth fall to the bottom of the ocean, they tend to deteriorate kind of quick. They have to have something to preserve them, just like all other bones do. So why don't you find shark teeth in the so-called Cambrian? It's probably because they're typically not found in those particular ecozones where those animals lived.
All right, what kind of ecosystem?
It's still a non-claim. That's the point, is that you need to be led down these roads, Jackson, because you don't even have a claim. You don't even know how they discovered these layers of Earth. They were discovered and literally made up. Okay, again, here's the point. I know the retarded, demon-possessed ass clown with no claim is just continuing to interrupt. That's the point. There's no claim for evolution. There's no claim. You continue just to have these seizures and you're having a panic attack. That's all you're doing, bro. The point is, Jackson, you have to tell us how they came up with the Cambrian layers before radiometric dating existed. You don't even have a claim. There's no information here.
I've got another quick question for Jackson. And so I've kind of already alluded to the reasoning behind why it doesn't make sense. But my whole reason for going down this train of thought is because of the ever persistent idea that somebody's going to be convinced that evolution is false if you find a rabbit in the Cambrian. Why would any rational human being expect a rabbit?
That's why I don't use that example. There was a marine environment, so I use a marine example.
So, just like
that
on
doesn't work
terra firma,
so the reason
you don't expect to find the deer to be hanging out with the wolves. They tend to stay separate until they're ready to fight, basically. But in the case of a global flood, the very first thing that happened was 40 days of rain. Do you know what animals do when it rains?
Go to high ground.
Yeah, they go and bed down. The lion that would hunt the zebra is no longer hunting zebra. He's going and bedding down in his own territory, and the zebra likewise is not out grazing in the field where the lion can find him. He's off bedding down in his own territory. And so the same exact thing happens underwater. Whenever there's a torrential rain, whenever there are volcanoes erupting, the fish in the ocean, all the marine life, they do the exact same thing that the animals on land do. They separate.
Yeah, there's still no claim, though. This is, again, trying to act like we can go back in time and see what layers of Earth tell us. No, the layers of Earth just prove that there was a worldwide flood. It certainly doesn't help evolution. See, the psychotic, demon-possessed retard has to laugh every time. You don't even have a claim, bro. Okay, then how do they radiometric date things, bro? Let me know when you have a claim. You still don't even have a claim.
Do you want to hear a claim?
Nothing.
Yeah, hold on. I want to respond really quick to something Jackson said.
Yeah,
okay,
Jackson, you were... Before we go on, can I just one real thing?
Yeah, bacteria making bacteria. Tell us about that,
it's more than that, dumbass, but I expect you to be educated to understand what I'm saying.
Come on, princess.
Anyway, so we know what flooding looks like geologically because we've seen multiple different floods throughout human history, and we actually know what they look like. Typically, when you have flooding, you really only have two layers of dirt. You have
Fro, can you explain Mount St. Helens?
Sam, he's just going to continuously lie. He's just making stuff up. This is what all evolutionists do. They just lie through their teeth. Mount St. Helens had a dozen layers of earth.
Mount St. Helens destroys everything you're saying right now, Fro.
Yeah, he got annihilated, bro. He's just a psychopath. Evolutionists are just nut jobs.
You have heavy things at the bottom, light things on top.
Yeah, it's already happened in the last 50 years.
Sorry. we
Sorry,
would
Fro, you don't
expect
have a
there
claim.
will really just be 2 layers of Earth.
I'm sorry, you don't
Since
have
we
a
don't
claim,
see that,
Fro.
there
Yeah,
is no
it already
global
happened
flood.
40 years ago. It's
So
called
as
Mount
much
St.
as
Helens.
XO wants to
These people are just
appropriate and be a
retards,
complete
man.
idiot
These
of
people are
himself,
just
that's probably
psychopaths. Yep.
standard for him.
He's just
He
he's
really
a
has put
psychopath. He doesn't have a
aside
claim.
his own
Let me
arrogance
address
over
it.
Just welcome to the dumpster fire.
Hold on.
Evolutionists never let you down.
Hey, you guys, and I do love a dumpster fire, but I do want to make one comment to Jackson, and then I would like to address Fro and just show a little. Okay, so Jackson, you said something about certain animals living within their environment. That's you would expect to find fossils based on their environment according to your model. If you are to be consistent, then you must concede that your model is insufficient because we find aquatic remnants and fossils on every high mountain peak, even in the deserts. So if you are going to be consistent, you have to concede that your model can't explain those and your model is false. Now, Fro, what you said, you're making a false equivocation because you're saying, hey, we've seen these little tiny local floods and we're going to compare that to what we would see in a global flood. The problem is we have done a high quality line of science called experiments in stratification. You can look it up on YouTube and you can see these experiments and you can see how these layers lay down in a lab, observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable, and it destroys your point. Another thing, Fro, is when Mount St. Helens erupted, it laid down all of these layers just as we find them rapidly. And then to make it even worse, we took samples of those rocks and we sent them to laboratories to have them tested. And when they were tested, they came back with deep times assigned to them. And so then they asked, well, why is that the case? And they said, oh, these dating methods don't work if something is young. Now, I want you to think about that, because if it's the case that the Earth is young, then all of these dating methods that you're presenting aren't going to work. Okay, so why should I accept your evolutionary storytelling with nothing demonstrable, and why should I dismiss the evidence that we have actually observed? Why should I do that?
Can I respond?
Yeah, you can
as
try.
As long as you're not going to be the immoral scum roach to the bottom left here, I'm okay with having an honest conversation about this.
You got crushed already. He's done.
You're an immoral scum roach. You can shut up.
You don't even have a claim. You can't even define evolution. Watch, just define evolution. I'll get off. Define evolution. I'll leave the server right now.
Evolution is the gradual change of an organization as time and mutation.
Wrong. Sorry, that was easy. It's just too easy, bro. You don't even have a claim. Don't even know what it is. It's just too easy.
You're literally too stupid to insult.
Nope, you're a retard. You don't even know your own religion. You don't even have a claim. It's like shooting dead fish in a barrel.
I'm going to talk to Sam here.
Go ahead and rage quit now. Go ahead and rage quit. You don't even have an example, bro. This is just insanity.
What you claimed, Sam, where were these experiments held at?
I'll get you the actual definition since he doesn't know his own religion. I'll get it for him right now.
Yeah,
so where do you have this stratification going on? Where is this taken at?
You can find all of that information, a good starting point where it's well documented. You just type up experiments in stratification. They were held at a college or like a university where they had a big, huge aquatic testing center. So if you're attempting to say that I'm just making this stuff up, yeah, you can go ahead and say that.
I never said you were.
But you could also go do your homework and look it up too. Right? But then when we get into the Mount St. Helens eruption, that was just another confirmation that these things happened. Even the polystrate fossils, we watched them plant down in the lake right there. All of these things were observed. And then when we took the rocks,
that real quick, may I?
Yeah, how do you explain a polystrate fossil?
Well, first of all, like polystrate fossils, that is actually a result of flooding, but not one flood. It happens by multiple floods and
that's an assumption,
many well, here's the thing, because if you're going to
just fairy tales, we're not going to. He doesn't have a claim. He's just making up fairy tales as usual.
So never mind.
Sam,
there's no claim. So I'll give you the definition for evolution because you know they're not going to be able to do it. So real quick, out of the medical encyclopedia, the actual definition of evolution is the theory that all species of plants and animals, including humans, have become into existence by gradual continuous change from earlier forms. See natural selection. That's the actual definition. You're welcome.
That's basically what I said, but you're too stupid to understand that. Anyway,
Nope,
so what's
it's
going
not.
on?
I'm sorry. No, I'm
when it
sorry.
comes to
You don't even have a
stratification-
claim. You don't even understand what you're talking.
You
When it
don't
comes to
even have a claim,
stratification, you've never
idiot.
observed stratification. I'm sorry. You don't have a claim.
So do you believe
You are literally
that
nothing
geological
more than an
column-
arrogant.
Yeah, go ahead,
mountain.
Jackson. Go ahead and
But
speak
that's
so we
okay.
can
I don't
get the
expect
retard
actual
off the
moral
mic for a minute. Go ahead,
integrity
Jackson.
from someone like you.
Do you
Go ahead,
believe
Jackson.
do you believe the geologic column exists anywhere?
No, and you can't even show me where it is, so you don't either. You can't even make a claim for it, Jackson.
The Williston Basin?
Yeah, you don't even have a claim. You don't even know where anybody can point it out. That's the point. Nobody has a claim for the geological column. There's no such thing.
I
Nobody.
am getting such an education. I'm realizing if I keep talking and talking and talking, I kind
Well,
of.
we're trying to talk to Jackson. At least Jackson isn't demon possessed and he's not having a panic attack and a seizure. So Jackson is at least acting like a
Oh, no, I'm not having
proto-human.
a
He's
panic
doing well.
attack. I'm not
I know, it's okay, little fro. I know you live on the internet now and you're so smart because you go to Talk Origins and they tell you what to believe. I understand.
So I got a quick
Congratulations.
question for Jackson again. Jackson, you affirmed that the geological column does exist physically on planet Earth, right?
Yes.
And would you consider that there is one or more places here in the U.S. that might be true?
There's at least one, yeah.
So one of the problems that comes up with that, if you did hypothetically, and I'm not even refuting the idea at all that a physical place like what you're thinking exists, but there's kind of a big point to be made there. If you found such a place, here's the problem with it. Literally billions of years of time are missing from it, even if it does have representative layers from everything that you see in the schematics in the textbook. Literally billions of years of time are missing from it.
How so?
Well, that's what unconformities are. Every evolutionary geologist out there, they identify unconformities specifically as being places where something doesn't quite make sense and time is missing from it. And to the layman, you don't have to know a whole lot of geology or biology, either one. You can walk up and look at, for instance, the cross sections in the Grand Canyon, and you can see where one layer ends and another layer begins. That very thin line that transitions from one to the other, it's got none of the earmarks of millions of years passing.
I've got a counter question.
Okay.
If all of these layers formed in a flood, how are we accounting igneous layers and alien and evaporite deposits?
Well, that's a real good question, and it's got a very simple logical answer, and that is that, when water moves, especially in large volumes, so you think of things like what was discussed about Mount St. Helens or any large lake, anytime a lake drains suddenly, you know what happens when that goes on? Tectonic plate movement. You get earthquakes out of it. And so this flood that's going on, it's a very complex scheme of not just, and so this kind of goes into what I call the bathtub model of somebody like Bill Nye, the not much science guy. You've got a very complex scheme of water flowing, tectonic uplift, and collapse, both directions. You've got a differential topography on the land. You've got volcanoes erupting. You got a whole lot of things going off in random places and random sequence of events and stuff like that. None of that suggests that there is not a general order produced from a worldwide flood, because there is, and that's because the Earth rotates the way it does. And so you've got the lunar attraction of gravity causes the water to generally flow in one direction. Even though on land where the differential topography is, it's got to flow with the topography, right? So I think that kind of answers your question.
Right. Well, you mentioned unconformities, like a sequence missing from, say, from like the Gandanese Basin has the Permian layer missing. Other than that, it's complete. But
okay.
But the Williston Basin has all of them.
Okay, so 2 points there. Number one, how, so I don't personally have intimate knowledge about how the exact durations are assigned to each so-called layer, but like I do know that the Cretaceous, for instance, is a supposed 79 million years, if I'm not mistaken. So how is that 79 million years determined? And I would assume it has something to do with its thickest points found on Earth. And so that kind of begs the question, what do you do when you find a Cretaceous layer that's not nearly as thick as what 79 million years might suggest? Well, the general response, I believe, from the average evolutionary geologist would be that that thinner layer did not capture the full 79 million years.
Or there were different deposition rates in different areas, or
well, that kind of makes it question begging, because how do you know which area you got what deposition rate? And it also leads into they were talking about polystrate fossils. So most people, when they say polystrate fossil, they have that image of a tree trunk going through, multiple meters of strata, right? Well, nothing realistic about that. But let me introduce a different idea in polystrate, and that is that
T-Rock, before you do, and don't lose your train of thought, the reason why that doesn't work is because those things would rot.
No, exactly.
Yeah, if you've ever been out into a forest, if you're saying that these layers are laid down slow and gradually, then you have all of this decomposition taking place, and you have wood rot, and you have like microbes, and you just have entropic type property or principle that is taking hold of these things and just destroying it. You're not going to, if it was the case that there was some unique scenario to where the top of the tree would somehow last and at the bottom gets buried, it would get that rotting process. You would see it by the time you got to the top of the tree, there would be nothing left. You wouldn't find like a whole tree within these layers.
No, exactly.
It would be like pyramid or like pine cone, like shaped. You know what I'm saying? Like the top would be like a toothpick.
You kind of answered the question earlier when you mentioned Mount St. Helens, like trees were covered in one layer upright. That's oftentimes how they form.
Yeah, and then as some trees got waterlogged, they would fall at different rates. Like one tree would get waterlogged and would start sinking, and then and then another one would start sinking, and then you have these layers of sediment that are settling at the same time, forming these layers. So when you see a polystrate tree, you see the whole tree there. There's no rot.
Right. The problem is it's worse though, because there are no examples of layers of earth added to earth without a catastrophe. There is no such thing. It's just a psychosis.
Except for limestone.
Yeah, there's that too.
I want to talk about polystrate fossils real quick, because as far as I am aware, the only polystrate fossils we've found are
somebody's microphone. Somebody's got to mute. It's bad enough to hear his voice, but with the echo, come on, my goodness.
Okay, so the thing about it is, right? With polystrate fossils, all we really have are tree trunks, yes?
No.
What other fossils do we have?
Exactly. Let me continue my point a little while ago that I was going to talk about a non-traditional view of polystrate fossils, because when we're having this apologetics debate discussion, you're typically thinking of exactly what the vertical position tree is. But in polystrate fossils, one of the things that I found very interesting is that you can go to just about any major bone bed, and by bone bed I mean that in the broad sense it might just be clams and things like that. Anyway, point is, pick up a glob of solid rock out of there, and the one thing you notice is that you've got, it doesn't matter how big it is, it can be very small, but let's say you got this little clamshell, and then 3 inches over to the right, but half an inch higher, you've got another clamshell. And then, 2 inches to the left, but a quarter of an inch higher, you've got another one, and they're kind of closely packed. But the point is that they occupy horizontal space in the vertical. So they're
the
literally
left. Good news.
Huh?
Good news. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so anyway, the point is that you've got, it's what I call a polystrate conglomerate, and what that means is that you've got a whole bunch of fossils that are all occupying the same horizontal position and they overlap each other in the vertical direction. And just like Sam pointed out with the tree, you should have differential weathering from the top of the tree to the bottom if the evolutionary story was true and it was buried slow and gradually. By the same token, in a polystrate conglomerate, you should have differential weathering between any two fossils that occupy that cross in a horizontal line, but they're stacked vertically. You should have the exact same thing. So is the tree example the only polystrate fossil? Absolutely not. Not to mention if you take larger bones like a T-Rex femur, for example, that's several feet long, they might be found in a vertical position, and they are by definition a polystrate fossil.
Right.
Yeah,
So I want to say one more.
which would be called
Hey,
drop
Sam, I think you're the one echoing. Can you fix your audio real quick? Like, okay. So anyway, one thing I want to say here, the thing with polystrate fossils, I can agree that perhaps they were not buried kind of by a large amount of time, perhaps maybe like maybe different levels of sedimentary flooding. But thing about it is, like, if we're going to assume that these were all just buried at one time in some cataclysmic flood, like I have seen some creationists claim, why are we only finding the trunk?
Yeah, so let me correct you really quick. Let me correct you.
The roots.
Fro, let me correct you. So Jackson can assume that, okay? But the Christian doesn't assume that.
Doesn't assume what exactly?
We don't assume this global flood. That's an objective truth from the scripture, okay? Jackson rejects that. So he can say that he's assuming or whatever. But if you're going to identify as a Christian, or even if you're not, but you're not going to tell me that we're assuming it. All we're assuming is the truth of the scripture. You're the one rejecting that.
No, and again, like
I'm defending the truth of the scripture, and so is T-Rock. You're attacking it.
The issue is, and again, the thing about it is the moral degenerate that just left, right? What he wanted essentially to say is that because I asked critical questions of the Bible, I'm therefore rejecting the Bible and Christianity in general. That is a criteria that you people hold that I have no real need to hold. You see, I can criticize.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that.
And
yeah, the Bible is secondary to you, but it's not. To me, it's primary. To you, it's secondary.
To me too. It's
no,
just,
it's not. To me, it's primary.
And you're too afraid.
To me, it's primary.
And it's primary to me too.
So let me explain the difference to you. Okay. The reason why the Bible is secondary is because you are appealing and making an argument from science. So science is primary. You're asking for lines of scientific evidence to support your secondary, which would be the Bible. To me, it's opposite. Okay? And I don't have a problem admitting that. Everyone defends their worldview. The naturalist, they are going to presuppose naturalism, and they are going to defend that. The creationists, we are going to presuppose the truth of God's word, and we are going to defend that. There's no neutral ground here. Where's the neutral ground? Tell me where the neutral ground is, Fro. Where's the neutral ground?
Well, here's the thing, Sam. You're assuming I don't also do that. Here's the issue.
Oh no, I can prove it. I can prove it with one question. I can just simply ask you one question, and we can prove it. Okay, Fro. Yeah, was there a global flood?
No.
There you go. See?
Again, here's the issue. That is a criteria you need to hold. I have no necessary. I don't need to hold it because I have a fundamentally different understanding of Scripture.
Because again, the Bible's secondary. Now, if you want to get back to the lines of evidence, the reason why your assertion that some polystrate fossils can be buried with water, the reason why that's a problem is because we find these all over the place, and we find these in high altitudes.
My problem.
So you can't have how do you have a local flood on a mountaintop? How do you do that, Fro? According to your uniformity model, that mountain had to be submerged.
May I?
How'd you do that?
If you want to actually hear my answer, I could ask. You could answer for you. Do you want to hear my answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there is a way to explain that, and that is kind of through the shifting of tectonic plates. As one plate meets another, it shifts the ground up. That's how mountain ranges form. So that's how. Hold on, I'm not done yet, Sam. Hold your horses.
Okay. I'll explain why that doesn't work.
I would say on that aspect, yeah, I think that would explain as to why we find these things on mountaintops. But moreover, what I question about polystrate fossils, and especially like the trees, why do we only find the trunks? I mean, if we're going
we don't.
Let me answer that.
A quick internet search will correct you. But the problem
that everything kind of was buried with one cataclysmic flood. Why are
let me answer that for you, Fro, slow down for just a second. Let me answer that for you.
I want you to please answer that. But when I objected originally and explained, I want to just really quick explain to Fro why that doesn't work is because, unfortunately, Fro, these same seculars have documented erosion rates, and you have erosion taking place faster than the uplift. So that's not going to work for you either.
So
go ahead.
So,
Fro, go
let
ahead.
me go ahead and answer your original question, and I'll touch on the mountain uplift, the tectonic uplift thing too. Your original question is why don't we find the branches and the roots, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So the reason should be quite obvious. It's the same thing that happened at Mount St. Helens. Whenever you have a cataclysmic flood ripping trees out of the ground, they're no longer attached to their roots, and the branches get ripped off by the same motion. Plus, whenever trees get ripped out of the ground by a massive flood, they float, and when they float, they bump around against each other and break limbs and leaves off and stuff like that, and you end up with basically nothing but trunks. And so we learned that in Mount St. Helens, and it was also a really good lesson on how coal can form too. But anyway, that I think that succinctly answers the question, but I'm going to move on to the mountain uplift thing real quick, and I'm going to talk about the reason, one of two reasons. Sam pointed out one, and that is the erosion rates far outpace the uplift rates. And number two is that you get all these folded layers of rock, and layers of rock don't fold like that through slow and gradual uplift. They would crack all over the place.
Yeah, bent strata.
I'm not aware of those rocks, so I'm not sure how to make a response on
You're
that.
not aware of a lot of these things, Fro.
You're awful confident in evolution.
I mean, wow.
I'm never going to be competent in evolution.
It sounds like you have a faith position in this secular consensus that's in conflict with the Bible. Big time.
I never claimed to be an evolutionist.
Tell me again how evolution's true?
What? Okay. Well, anyway, so what's going on? Like, I've worked at a few logging camps in my lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. And what I found is that when you're in the forest, you find trees of all kinds.
Do you see them rotting on the ground?
Actually, yes, you do. Like there are trees that are completely rotted on the ground. Right?
Yeah, there you go. How many petrified ones do you find when you're outside of a unique area like the petrified forest, which clearly is an example of something else taking place? When you're walking through the forest, how many petrified trees do you find?
I don't think even scientists have like a answer as far as petrified forest. But also, I want to make myself very clear here.
No, you know how petrification happens?
Okay, well, can you shut up for a minute, Shannon? Let me say something.
Have I told you to shut up?
Okay, well then let me say politely.
Have I told you to shut up?
Will you please be quiet? So I can say something.
We can just start doing that too and telling each other to shut up if you want. Would you like that?
Okay, I'll be more polite then. Okay. So what's going on is that I never claim to be competent in evolution. I just don't believe in creationism. And so what I've come here for is just to kind of like spar, not to say that I'd be any real good at it, and I haven't got any real charity here.
Because you identified as a Christian and now you want to attack Christianity, and so we're saying, okay, well, you must have a really good argument. How do you explain these lines of evidence? And you just continue to fail.
Again, because I don't necessarily need to. I'm more competent in theology.
So, Fro, do you know how petrification happens?
Sorry?
Do you know how petrification happens?
Let me see. I
does it take time?
I legitimately used to know this. I forget.
Does it take? Well, I know what they say. It takes millions of years, right? But that doesn't work for a few different reasons.
I'm not talking about millions of years. There's an actual process behind it.
So it takes processes.
Everything takes processes.
Okay, so it's not time then.
It cannot, again, it's black and white. It can be a process that happens over time.
Well, that's the story.
You think
the time part,
variable time element?
The time part is the story. The processes is what's demonstrable. And we can petrify things immediately. You know that we have petrified cowboy boots? You know, we've gone into mines, right? There's been mines that have been shut down within the last 40 years. They've opened them back up and found petrified candles.
No, they weren't petrified. I know what you're talking about.
There are plenty lines of evidence that show petrification. You know, you can petrify something in your house.
No, I know what you're talking about. That's not petrification.
No, you can petrify things.
That's not petrification. That's actually iron oxide on top of it. How would I say?
What I'm saying is, Fro, you can look it up online and you can petrify things.
Oh yeah, I know, but that's not petrification. That's another process.
No, what I'm saying is you can petrify things.
Fro, what you're describing is what I would call encasement, where you have something and it basically just builds a shell around it. And so, yeah, that happens, but Sam's point is very valid. It's actual petrification happens. So fence posts are a common example of it. They get buried in the ground, and in traditional petrification, you have to have the original biomaterial has to start degrading and being replaced with a mineral component of some sort that's non-biogenic, and that's exactly what happens in fence posts.
No, but the issue about that is you can't petrify boots in the same way that you can petrify wood.
No, the leather absorbed the minerals, and the leather petrified.
No, it can't. Again, leather is an organic material.
You don't know what you're talking about, Fro.
Fro, you're completely
I wish John was here. I would literally share you links. I have them.
Fro, you're way off on this.
Listen, share them in the private chat. Take a look at them later.
Fro, you're off on this. If you take a piece of leather, it's got crevices and cracks and empty cavities in it that minerals can find their way into, and the leather can break down in a short period of time.
If you mean it in that way, I guess I'd have to agree.
So I have a list of all of these things, Fro, all of these different types of minerals, like diamonds, crystals, shells, all of these things, even oil, processes. They're just processes. These things form fast. All of these things that you were told and we were all told in school take millions and millions of years, but now we're learning that you don't need time at all. You just need processes. So all these lines of evidence that you're believing religiously, defending that you're ignorant about, they just don't exist. Outside of your imagination.
Again, this is the thing. This isn't really charitable conversation because I don't believe in evolution religiously in the same way.
Yes, you're defending it fervently.
May I finish?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't believe in evolution religiously in the same way that I adopt Catholicism. Here's the thing: if evolution is true, it does nothing to hurt my position of Christianity. If evolution is false, it has nothing to do to hurt my position of Christianity. Okay, this is something I hold to, but it's not something I'm married to. Not in the same way as my Christianity is. So if you guys are right, hold on. If you guys are right, I'm open to being corrected. But if you're going to be a moral degenerate in a scum dumpster like XO of RO there, then just leave. I'm not even going
to his attitude or behavior or however much however much you didn't like it, okay, has nothing to do with the points that he made. So you can call him a meanie, okay? But you didn't address a single thing he said. So what you're saying is this guy made a bunch of points that I don't like, but he hurt my feelings. Therefore, what he said is not relevant.
Yeah, no,
that doesn't work.
That's not the points he made. It's the fact that he sounds more arrogant and confident than knowledgeable.
Well, he's not here to defend himself, and I know that he would like to. We're not going to just bash the guy that's not here. Okay.
So signing off, guys. Have a good night.
Good night, T-Rock. I'm actually going to leave in just a few more minutes, but I do have a lot of links. So I have large gem crystals grow in hours. I've got 2 sources from that. I have all crystals grow fast. I've got a source on that. I have rocks form fast. That's pretty interesting. I have gold. We know now that gold forms fast. Oil forms fast. Fossils form fast. I have these other, oh gosh, what are they? Concertians? I'm sure. They're like fossils in rocks. Form fast. I have limestone, forms fast. Articles on that. More crystals form fast. Granite forms fast.
If you
Gems.
have those, could you show those in the private chat with me? I'm legitimately interested.
All of them?
Sure.
It would be, you know what? I'll tell you what. Email me. It would be easier for me to just throw them all in an email for you. I have gems form fast. I have diamonds form instantly under pressure. I mean, all of these things that, and then again, we have experiments in stratification. We have the observational.
I left my private chat for you, so you can email me all that.
Okay. Okay.
So,
but the bottom line is from this conversation, you are defending this secular interpretation of science. You're not understanding that you're not understanding that it is not science that we disagree with. We love it. We just come to a different conclusion based on our presuppositions. And some might say, oh, you start with the Bible. Well, they're starting with naturalism. They're fools for saying that. Okay? But I have secular sources on all of these things. We can refute them on their own terms. I personally don't have a problem with creation sites. That's called a no true Scotsman fallacy. You're saying, oh no, you have to make your argument from my approved group of people who support my confirmation bias, and they have to conclude evolution, and these are all of the parameters that I'm arbitrarily going to and fallaciously set up that you have to make your argument from. No, I don't have to do any of that.
I would agree with you on that.
Okay, so I mean,
can I say something? Can I say something real quick? Because something I might be more competent in actually elucidating to you. So here's the issue. Like, typically, what I find is that, like, I look all these things up, but what I often find is that creationist arguments just oftentimes aren't so compelling as, like, say, arguments for evolution that I found. So, and again, you might disagree, but that's the conclusion I've come to. And I'm definitely looking at the information you have, and who knows, it might actually change my mind.
Yeah,
but now,
see,
what's going on? The reason
what you've done.
The reason I disagree with the young Earth is not necessarily for scientific reasons, which I'm not totally competent in. The reason I disagree with the young Earth oftentimes is just from the own research I've done into Christianity, into theology specifically.
No.
For instance, let's look at Noah's flood, for instance, right?
No, hold on. You said two things that I want to address. Okay.
What's up?
So you're not delineating between proof and persuasion. We prove things all day long. If you're not persuaded by that, that's not my problem.
Well,
I can prove to you that 1 + 1 is 2 all day long. Although you might not be persuaded, but that's not my problem. Now, when you get into theology, when we begin this conversation, you destroyed a literal creation, you destroyed the kinsman redeemer, you destroyed the genealogy, you destroyed the soteriology when it comes to salvation. You've destroyed an omniscient God. And that was just in the beginning of our conversation.
Again, not at all. I never destroyed an omniscient God.
Yes, you did. You said Jesus came to for a certain group as if when he was God before he came to earth in the flesh in the flesh, he didn't understand or didn't know these things.
I never said that.
You're saying that when Jesus came, he didn't know beforehand that he was going to get rejected by his own people?
I never
That
said
is what you said. When you can play, those were your underlying implications when you go back and you play the stream again. Those are the implications of the argument that you made. How you're basically essentially saying that, you know, Jesus didn't know that he was going to be rejected. He came for his only people, and then he was like, oh, whoops, I guess I didn't realize they were going to reject me. So now I'll offer this up to the Gentile also. Wait, what? God's not omniscient? I mean, you've butchered the scripture, and we didn't even get through Genesis.
What I would say to that is that, no, it's not that God isn't omniscient, but rather that he had in fact given his people a choice as whether to accept or reject him.
Did God not know what was going to happen? Did God not know what was going to happen?
How to say?
He's either omniscient or he's not. Which is it?
We're talking about the foreknowledge of God, which is a subject that our best theologians have been talking for literally centuries. And so, what I would say to that, like, I would say that God had given man a choice, and so that choice was made by man. And what I would say there is that as far as God knowing things, there is a hard limit on what God can know. In the same way, there's also a hard limit on what God can create. For instance, God can't create a mountain so big he can't lift it.
Do you know why?
And yeah, because these things are impossible to make.
Yeah. So when you make that statement, you are presenting an incoherent definition of omnipotence.
Right.
We would never require God.
That God knows everything. That
we
is
would
an
never
incoherent
require
idea of omniscience.
We would never require God to be able to be so powerful that he can do something that is logically impossible. You would have to show how something is logically possible before you can argue that God can't do something.
Exactly. And so what I would say, those
So
things
what is the logical impossibility of God not knowing that when he took on the flesh, his people were going to reject him? Where's the logical incoherence in that?
Oh, I would say he could know it, but by his sovereignty, he chose not to. He let people
before
make
he
decisions
came in the
themselves.
flesh, before he veiled himself in humanity. And I'm speaking about the Trinity, by the way. Right? Let us make man in our image, the triune God. It was Jesus in the garden. It was Jesus coming to earth in the Old Testament. It was Jesus who knew. It was Jesus who knows all things, and he knew that when he veiled himself in flesh and he took on humanity, he didn't give up. He didn't give up fully his divine nature.
Of course not.
He just cloaked it in humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost have this dual type scenario, which is complicated. But God didn't give up those things. But in order for you to make your argument, you're going to have to say that God didn't know these things beforehand, and you're going to have to show me where that's logically incoherent. And I don't think that you're going to be able to do that. But that's what your position would entail when you start to argue that Jesus didn't know these things beforehand.
I would not say he didn't know these things beforehand, but rather came exclusively for the Jews at first. Does that make sense?
Then you lost your argument. Then yeah, that's fine.
Am I making sense here?
Sure.
Okay.
But that's not what you said earlier, which is fine. That's fine.
Yeah, as I said, I'm open to having my opinions reformed and changed on this.
Well, here's the thing, okay? So in Christianity, there's what we call the creator-creature distinction, okay? So those who are suppressing the truth of God, they are reasoning from their own creatureliness, right? So, for example, when we can ask questions of the Bible, but we don't have the authority to question the Bible. Now, the critic who is suppressing the truth.
Why can't you ask questions?
I'm going to explain that right now. So the critic who is suppressing the truth, they are going to question the Bible. They're going to call the Bible into question, and they're going to say that some of these things aren't possible because their reasoning begins with themselves. They are the final reference point. They are the creature trying to draw the creator down to their creaturely reasoning. And that's why they don't understand these things. But on Christianity, we want to start with the objective truth of our creator. And we want to think God's thoughts after him. So the Bible is objectively true. If the Bible says that God created a literal atom, then God created a literal atom. If you don't understand that or you don't accept that, then you are starting with yourself. You are reasoning from the creature to the creator, and that's the problem.
Well, for that, I would say you're making the black and white fallacy. You're making like
there is no neutral ground there, bud.
No, I would say
it is black and white. There's creator and creature. It's A or not A.
Okay, then you're not representing the outlook correctly.
A or not A. Do you understand the law of excluded middle?
Yeah, I do. Except you reject the middle. I would say that
A or not A. It is A or not A.
Yeah, that's. I understand the argument.
Is that black and white? Is A or not A black and white?
Sure, in some ways, black and white.
So you will either accept the biblical worldview or you will reject the biblical worldview.
In some ways, black and white arguments can
No, it's A or not A. It's as simple as that. I'm not presenting you a false dilemma. I'm not saying, look, it's A or B. It could be C. I'm saying it's A or not A. You are either going to reason creaturely or you are going to begin at the creator and reason to the creature.
And again, this is the thing, right? Like,
where's the middle ground in there?
I accept all that. I accept all that. But the thing
No, you
about
don't,
it
bro.
is, I do not see that by asking questions of the Bible and even calling some of it into question, you're just basically an apostate calling all of it into question. I don't see the.
No, you are though. Okay, so let me ask you this, bro. On what grounds can you question the creator? On what grounds?
On the grounds I have questions.
No, where did you get those rights to call the Bible into question? Where'd you get those from?
Wanting to know what the Bible is. That's where I got those rights
No,
from.
I didn't say that you can't ask questions of the Bible. Okay? But when you make your final reference point, you are Eve in the garden, and the serpent is saying, did God really say? You know what Eve should have said? She should have said, yes, that's what God said. But that's not what you're doing. You see, Eve should have started with God and reasoned downward. She should have said, yes, God said. But she didn't do that. She made herself the final reference point. She made herself the authority. She put herself falsely in a position to where she could question the word of God and come to her own conclusion. You see? That's where Eve fell. And that's where you fell.
I would not argue I'm doing that. Rather, what I think is going on is you simply want to regulate the questions that can be asked. Like
the Bible's either objectively true or it's not.
No, again, the world.
So the Bible's not. So the Scripture's not inspired. So you reject that too.
No, it's just that like the world's more nuanced than you want to make it.
Wait, is the Scripture not inspired by God? Did you just destroy that also?
Of course it is.
Okay, so then what's the problem?
Well, that's a good question. What
so
exactly
God, so you've destroyed an omnipotent God.
No, I haven't.
Because God can't communicate these things, and He couldn't preserve His word in a way that we can read it normally and honestly. So you've destroyed. You have destroyed an omnipotent God. God is not powerful enough to preserve His word in a way that we can trust it. You've just destroyed that too.
I literally never said that, Sam. But here's the thing: Kevin says something interesting. Either the entire Bible is true, or it isn't. And in that case, yes, I would agree. The entire Bible is true. But what exactly are you meaning by truth? Do you mean truth in a scientific way, in a philosophical way, in a theological way? Do you mean truth in just like these nice little maxims we find? Because if that's the case, all we really need is Proverbs or Psalms. In what way are we really saying the Bible is true? I would agree that the Bible is true in a black and white way. That yes, the Bible is only ever going to give us truth, but in which way, and how is it conveying this truth? These are the questions the areas agree we can ask.
Yeah, let's. I'm going to ask you two questions. Does science deal with objective truths, or does it deal with conclusions that can change based on new information?
Preferably the latter.
Okay, so you're not going to get truth from science, are you then?
Say again?
So you're calling the objective truth into Scripture, you're calling that into question from your subjective truth of scientific consensus according to the secular world? That's what you're doing?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say
Well,
that
that's exactly what you've done.
Like everything, our knowledge is quite limited.
Yeah.
And
So well, hold on. Now let me ask you. Let me ask you my next question. If you reject the objective truth of God, where can it be found? Where do you get that objective truth from? Is it just floating around in the ether? You have no access to it? Can the secular?
You assume I reject the objective truth of God.
Well, it's either objectively true and you accept it and you begin with the creator and you reason down to the creature. You think God's thoughts after him, or you don't.
Okay, so let me explain this.
A or not A. We're back to A or not A.
Okay, hold on. Sam, is murder wrong?
It is objectively wrong.
Okay,
Do you know why?
give me a pound of murder. Let's prove it's wrong right now. Let's prove that murder is mathematically impossible. Let's do it.
Fro, do you want me to tell you why murder is wrong?
Oh, no, I know why murder is wrong.
Tell me why murder is wrong.
But it's not just not in a particular.
Why is murder wrong, Fro?
Because murder is wrong because the human life is something that belongs only to God, and we do not have liberty over its life or its death. That is something for God to decide.
Is that an objective truth?
It is. But
so do you get to arbitrarily pick and choose what you're going to accept as an objective truth from the Scripture?
No, but what I'm saying, that's exactly
okay, so do you deny the global flood?
Yes.
Whoops. Looks like you've contradicted yourself.
Not necessarily, because here's the thing.
No, necessarily.
Well, but
do you object the omnipotence of God?
That you assume God.
Do you object the omnipotence of God, that He can preserve His word so it can be read normally and honestly throughout the ages? Do you reject that?
The question is whether or not He did that, and I would have said yes.
You say He did or He didn't?
He did. He did certainly preserve His word.
Okay, so do you believe in the global flood?
I do not.
Whoops. Looks like you contradicted yourself again.
I didn't contradict myself, but if you want to understand why I didn't, you can go ahead and ask why.
I'm not interested in why, because you're going to appeal to lines of evidence that you've demonstrated you know very little about here tonight. And that's why I'm not interested.
You're very good at gaslighting, but not actually, representing people.
Well, I hope you listen to this tomorrow. I hope you play it back and maybe when you're not, when you're listening to this again, you won't be in like a rigid debate mode, and you'll actually consider the things that I've saying, because your position has destroyed.
I would hope you consider the things I've said, because
your position has destroyed all of these things that I've laid out. Your position has destroyed all of these things that I've laid out, and I hope that you consider that.
So let me explain. Like, I would say that, no, there was no global flood. Why? Because the Bible, more than anything else, is literature, right? It isn't out to explain actual scientific facts to you. It's there to convey the truth of God. And so when it's talking about global flood, what we need to ask is what genre is being described here, and what information are already get out of this.
Fro, how would an atheist say that any differently?
Say again?
How would an atheist say that any differently?
They wouldn't. Does that make them an atheist?
You know why? You know why?
Well, here's the thing, Sam.
Hold on. You know why, bro?
Let's hold on.
No, because atheists are reasoning. They're atheists like Eve have made their self the final reference point, and they are starting from their own autonomy, and they are reasoning up to God, and they're saying, God doesn't fit in my box.
I'm not saying that, Sam.
No, you literally did.
Not correct.
You implicitly said that very clearly. You may not have explicitly said that.
Maybe, but I don't share
you implicitly said that loud and clear many times now.
From your
in many ways.
Perspective, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But your dogmatic perspective is not the standard of orthodoxy, Sam.
So I shouldn't be dogmatic on the foundation of my worldview?
Well, I imagine. Well, again, you can be dogmatic on your worldview, but it doesn't necessarily make it true. Your interpretation of the Bible doesn't make your interpretation orthodox.
The biblical worldview is not true?
Well, what you call the biblical worldview, take a number. Everybody claims to have that. The
That's
Mormons,
fine.
the Jehovah's Witnesses, the
Sure.
Pentecostals, they all have their worldview. Okay, so take a number. Yours is no better than theirs.
So now we're going to go all the way back to A or not A, right?
And they would say the same thing. Either
They can say whatever they want. Are they starting with the creator and relying on his objective truth and reasoning down to the creature?
Yes, that's exactly what they would
Do
claim.
they deny the global flood?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no.
Yeah.
And so, as
So-
I
so
said,
they-
like,
so they can say a lot- they can say a lot of stuff.
It was
So
just
what?
one of hundreds of thousands.
So Fro, people say a lot of stuff. So what?
And so now this is the thing, like, what's going on here, and what I look at the Bible, I look at what is it trying to say? Does it care
No,
about
you don't.
science, or does it care about what truth it's trying to convey? So,
Would you like me to read from you in Genesis? I believe it's chapter 8. Where
let's do it then.
Huh?
Let's do it. Read what you got for me. I got a Bible in front of me.
Okay, well, you can go ahead and go to, I believe it's in chapter 8. Okay. Yeah, and then you can go down to, what is it, 13? And God said to Noah that the end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth.
Wait, is this Genesis 8 or somewhere before this? Because I'm not reading this here.
Oh,
What verse
I'm sorry,
you
this is Genesis 6. My bad.
Genesis 6, okay.
Yeah. And then we're going to go, you can go down to 13.
6:13. Let's see here.
So we could probably fast track through a lot of this stuff, but yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
I'm here.
well, we
So
don't have to,
6:13.
you know, so yeah, in Genesis 13, Genesis 14, make yourself an ark. You reject that?
In a particular sense, but what do you mean by reject?
So God didn't make, so all of this stuff. So then when you get, yeah, so cover it with pitch, make a window, like he gives specific dimensions for the thing, elaborates on how he builds this thing for over, like 100 years, brings all the animals to him, and then God shuts them up into the ark, and then God floods the whole earth. You reject all of that? I mean, it's very, very clear. Maybe you can read Genesis 7.
May I say something? What you're going on, you have the underlying assumption that what's being built here is a boat. It's not. No, it's not. It's literally not a boat.
Okay.
Because here's the thing: the word being used there is ark.
Fro, you're killing me.
Well,
Fro, do me a favor, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe tomorrow, just get acquainted with chapter 6, 7, and 8.
Or maybe you want to actually hear my perspective instead of gaslighting it.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm actually.
Because here's the issue, right? What's going on here? This isn't a boat being built. Never does God actually give any dimension for like sails and rudders and anything like that.
Where was it going, Fro? Where was it going? To an island?
Well, yeah, no.
It was a barge. Why did it need a rudder and a sail?
Well, again, the fact of the matter is, what's going on here is that what.
Fro, where was the boat? Where was it going?
It was surviving. It was surviving the oceans, the floods.
Why does it need a rudder?
To navigate
Or a
the
sail?
water.
Was he going to sail?
Yes, at some point it started. Again, he's out at sea for an entire year. It needs
Fro,
to sail and
listen,
move around at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
It needs some way of locomotion.
I'm going to tap out. It's past my bedtime.
Okay. So let me say something here real quick. So what's going on is that God is literally telling Noah to build a box. In fact, the word literally means either like literally box. The word ark, because
Like a
no,
barge.
because a very similar word is used in Exodus, right, and even in the rest of the Torah.
Why are you hung up on one word? You're going to.
Because this is a very bad take. Because if you're going to say that this is a boat, right, you're going.
So we're going to ignore the entire context of multiple chapters because you are uncertain on one word. That's brilliant.
So you take the position
That's a
that, okay,
good.
hold on.
So are
take
you
the
gonna
position
hold
that
on?
Moses was lugging a
Now,
boat through the desert?
now you are destroying a proper hermeneutic.
Okay, so
You're
you're making the
destroying
argument
that too. You see?
so you are making the argument that Moses was dragging a boat through the desert. Is that it?
He was dragging it through the desert?
Well, however you want to define it, he was the Ark of the Covenant was no longer an ark or a box; it was a boat, according to your own standard.
Bro, does
Yeah?
it matter if he built in the desert?
Well, it wouldn't make sense, would it?
It wouldn't make sense when God's about to flood the earth. What should he have brought it down to the shoreline?
Well, okay. Well, so Moses is lugging a boat through the desert. Then is that what you want to say?
Dude,
is that
look.
what we're saying?
He built a boat. He gets in it. The flood waters rise. Where's the problem in that?
Well, the fact that he didn't build a boat, he literally built a box. That's what the word means.
Yeah. So you're guilty of presentism. You have this modern sense of a boat that you're trying to apply to this text, and you're ignoring the context.
Well, then why doesn't the Torah just call it a boat?
That's fine.
Why doesn't it call it a boat, Sam? Why not? Why does it call it a box?
Fro, you're an interesting fellow, and it's been fun. But I'm gonna go to bed. I'm begging you to read that tomorrow or in the next couple of days, and just to confirm your position and to further question mine, if nothing else. Okay? You got 3 chapters, probably take you 20 minutes. You should want to do that anyway. You're a Christian. You're a Bible.
You got my email, right?
I do have your email. Yeah.
Okay. Send me those things then. Okay.
Sure. You got it. All right. Good night, Fro. Good night, chat. Good night, everyone. Fro, oh, okay. Good night, everyone.